continue to hunt down those terrorists wherever they are.
They're getting so much satisfaction of the amount of death, of the amount of destruction. The same people that I was protecting are the ones that I feel now I have to protect against what the current Israeli government is trying to push through.
I'm very pleased that the Israel Defense Forces continues to take the fight to these terrorists inside the Gaza Strip.
Benjamin, the other thing you realise what you've said, your numbers are much higher than the Gaza-run health ministry.
Not once did you interrupt your time.
It doesn't matter what I did with my other guest. I think everyone can work out who the imbecile is. Everyone can work out who the imbecile is.
You do not speak for
All right,
them.
cut his mic. Vice President J.D. Vance dined with the Qatari Prime Minister in New York this weekend as the US continues to mend bridges torched by the shock Israeli strike on Doha. Regional leaders are holding an emergency summit to discuss Israel. The Qatari emir described Israeli aggression as blatant, treacherous and cowardly. The King of Jordan condemned Israel as acting without limits. Israel's attack on a residential building housing Hamas negotiators who were discussing a US-backed ceasefire proposal has both embarrassed President Trump and unsettled the Middle East. In a moment, I'll talk to an IDF whistleblower who is refusing to return to Gaza. We begin with Danny Danon, the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations. Welcome back to Uncensored, Danny Danon. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me again. I'm really struggling. To understand the logic, if you genuinely want to get to a peace deal of attacking one of America's leading allies, Qatar, or attacking a Hamas group in Qatar, where the United States has a huge military base there. They've been at the forefront of trying to forge a peace deal, bringing all the people together. I'm really struggling to understand how launching an attack in Doha that ends up not killing any of the Hamas leaders, as apparently was the intention, but kills a number of other people, but it causes outrage across the region, upsets the President of the United States, enrages the Emir of Qatar, understandably. How does any of this advance Israel's cause, and why does it make anybody in the world imagine that Israel genuinely wants peace? Because that is the last thing you would do, surely, is attack the negotiators as they're meeting to discuss a peace deal.
Thank you for having me again, Pierce. So let's make it clear. The attack was not against Qatar. The attack was in Doha against the leadership of Hamas, a notorious terrorist organization which orchestrated the atrocities of October 7th. So we actually targeted terrorists, period, that are killing people. And you know, only last week we had another terror attack in Jerusalem. And the same group in Qatar, they put a statement that they congratulate the success of the attack, which killed another 6 Israelis. So we are committed to find those terrorists, to bring them into justice, or to bring justice to them. And that's exactly what we did. And you know, Pierce, it is exactly what the US did when the US attacked Osama bin Laden, in Pakistan, by the way, or when the UK attacked ISIS terrorists in Syria or Iraq, or when France is attacking terrorist groups in Mali or Burkina Faso. But when it comes to Israel, all of a sudden there is double standard. Why you attack terrorists in a different country and you reach sovereignty of another nation? But that's how it works. You know, we fight terror and we will continue to hunt down those terrorists wherever they are. They cannot hide in Gaza, in Beirut. We will find them wherever they will be.
Right, but that doesn't really answer my question. I mean, trying to compare the attack on Osama bin Laden in a compound in Pakistan when he's the leader of Al-Qaeda, as far as I'm aware, he wasn't negotiating any peace process with anybody. In fact, quite the opposite. So a clear, legitimate target. Why would you target people who you are trying to negotiate peace with. Unless you want to send a message, you have no interest in peace. I don't get it.
Let's be clear about it. Hamas leadership that was behind the atrocities of October 7th, the one who funded and planned the attack to kidnap Israelis, rape Israeli women and girls, burn people to death, they will not stay with us, period. You can argue with me about the timing, about the location, but they will not stay with us, period. We will get to them. You know, the same way we got to the people who committed the massacre in the Olympic Games in Munich. We got to them. It took us a few years. So the same goes for the leadership of Hamas. We were able to take care of most of them, and we are determined to finish the job, to complete the assignment, to make sure that they will not stay with us after what they did to us.
But you know that the families of the remaining hostages are furious about what happened. They believe it has imperiled the lives of the remaining hostages. Many people share that view. It's enraged other countries in the region, some of whom have been more moving to potentially formalize, you know, a better relationship with Israel, joining the Abraham Accords. Some of them are members of the Abraham Accords. And everyone's scratching their head, trying to work out the logic of attacking people as they were supposedly meeting to discuss a peace proposal. Because what message are you now sending to the Hamas people who are supposed to be negotiating peace in some format or a ceasefire with Israel if everywhere they meet to discuss the proposals, you're going to kill them? That seems to me a pretty logical assumption by everybody, that you have no desire for peace or a ceasefire. You simply want to lure them into a place where they consider any proposal and then kill them. I mean, do you accept that that is not the way that you get a peace deal, by killing negotiators?
The message is very clear. We are not going to wait forever. You know, there is an opportunity for a ceasefire. By the way, we accepted one in Hamas in the last minute. The same leadership that you are parading now, the same leadership that you're saying that negotiating peace, they decided to pull back from the agreement that was proposed to them. So we don't think they really had the intention to move forward. And even now, you know, they can still decide to accept the proposal that President Trump put forward before we operate into Gaza, before we take more action. But we cannot just wait and wait and wait. For 2 years, we have hostages in captivity, 48 of them still in captivity of Hamas. We are not going to sit idly by and wait for Hamas to decide what will be the next step. We will go after them, and we will find them, and we will kill them. So it's up to them to decide now what they want to do next. And I hope also for Qatar, it's about time that Qatar will decide whether they want to harbor terrorists or not. You know, I don't understand why they find asylum in the Ritz-Carlton in Doha, and why they are not hiding in a tunnel in Beirut or in Gaza. And I think those terrorists should know that they cannot continue with their lavish lifestyle after they committed this atrocity.
Well, let me be clear. I think Hamas are a brutal terror organization. I think it is disgraceful that their leadership have lived a life of luxury out of Gaza, whilst leaving the people of Gaza to be killed in huge numbers as they've enjoyed splendid luxury elsewhere. I completely concur with that. But from a purely political perspective of trying to bring an end to this war, I don't understand what was gained by attacking in Doha, in Qatar, the heart of one of America's allies, America being the principal sponsor of Israel, why this has benefited anyone, including Israel, given the rage that has been seen since then, understandably by Qataris, but also many others in the region, many other leaders in the region. It didn't achieve its mission. I mean, do you accept the mission was a failure? You didn't kill reportedly any Hamas commanders, so do you accept the mission failed?
Well, it's too early to call. We have to wait to see. You know, also when we assassinated Muhammad Def, it took a few weeks to confirm. So we'll have to wait. But you know, the intention, that's what's important. The message that was sent. Even if we fail this time, we will do it again and again and again until we will hunt them down, all of them. So they cannot hide. I think they know it by now. And I think that message is an important one. And I think actually it will help us to move forward with the ceasefire agreement, because You know, for the people of Gaza, we know Hamas don't care about the people of Gaza. You agree with me about that? But maybe they care about their own lives and their own future, that they will negotiate a ceasefire deal.
Finally, the UN General Assembly takes place next week with many countries, including the UK, France, Canada, Australia, and Belgium, expected to recognise Palestine as a state. What is your message for them as everybody meets next week?
Well, we know it's a theater. We know it's nothing will change the reality on the ground. It will be another empty declaration. And I will give you one example. You know, in that declaration that they want to adapt, it says that Hamas will not be part of the equation for the future in Gaza. And I asked my colleagues, who exactly is going to get rid of Hamas? You know, Hamas will not adapt the UN resolution. So basically, they want us to do the hard work, the dirty work for the entire world, to get rid of Hamas in order to build something new in Gaza and reconstruct Gaza. So we will have to do that. We have the responsibility on our shoulders to make sure Hamas is not there. So there will be speeches, declarations, but when you look at what's happening on the ground, it's our forces which creates new reality on the ground.
Danny Dannon, I appreciate you joining me again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Well, I'm joined now by Yotam Vilk. He's a reserve captain in the IDF and a member of Soldiers for the Hostages, an organisation of Israelis who have served in Gaza but are now refusing to return. Yotam, thank you very much indeed for joining me. You wrote a very powerful op-ed this week in the New York Times explaining your position. For those who haven't read it, summarise what you were saying.
When I started Walton Goggins goggle glasses, I needed a website. Figuring out how to make one was pretty hard on the old noggin. But with GoDaddy Arrow, I can just tell it what I want. And it uses AI to make a website so fast it pretty much blows my noggin. This is working. With a beautiful design that'll blow my customers' noggins. Which allowed me to focus my noggin on making more goggins to put on their noggins. Which were just metaphorically blown.
Look like you know what you're doing at GoDaddy.com.
When I came to Notre Dame, I wanted to be a part of something more than just business as usual.
So I was speaking of how I feel due to the fact that I went to this war. I showed up on 7th of October after the horrible massacre on southern Israel. I went to fight back Hamas for certain reasons, and for the reasons that I was told by my own government about the ability to also get back the Israeli hostages that we let down on 7th of October, and also find a way to get a solution, you know, because we were not pacifists. We know that one of the possibilities and the moral stand of a modern state is to use military force to get some sort of policy through. We understand they have the right and the moral obligation to defend themselves. But as the time went by, and as we hear more and more the Israeli government speaking about foreign goals to the Israeli security, and we see we have enough, you know, people speaking about the fact that the Israeli government is working to sabotage a hostage deal, and now also you just spoke about bombing the negotiators during a time when I don't know, I didn't hear anyone from the Israeli government speaking to us about that they were going to back off. Actually, we heard definitely otherwise. And we had enough evidence that the Israeli government is not pushing through that direction. They were speaking more and more publicly about foreign agendas, about resettling Gaza, about forcibly immigrating Palestinians from Gaza. They're getting so much satisfaction of the amount of death, of the amount of destruction, that sometimes, you know, a lot of it could be justified under, you know, certain goals of war, but you hear the way they get so much, I would say, even pleasure from it. And they are pushing through agendas that I think are foreign to what I believe the state of Israel is, that are foreign to the ability of the state of Israel to stay a legitimate state. And I do think that at this point, the same morals that I stood up for on 7th of October, the same people that I was protecting, are the ones that I feel now I have to protect by speaking as loud as I can against what the current Israeli government is trying to push through. And yeah, and I think the most Zionist thing that I could think of at this point is to firmly speak and differentiate between the legitimate actions of the IDF during this war, the right of Israel to defend itself, and what is currently being pushed through by the Israeli government that I see as maybe a stamp on the state of Israel, and maybe I don't know. I can understand how we get back from that to the same idea of Israel that I grew up on and I was going out to defend.
Yotam, what reaction have you had to your piece in the New York Times?
Generally, I really think, and also you could see in polls in Israel for the last many months, that the majority of the people in Israel understand this. They do not believe anymore in the Israeli government. They want a hostage deal. They understand that the Israeli government is working against getting a hostage deal. They do not have any plan for the day after. They hear the Attorney General of the IDF and they hear the Chief of Staff of the IDF. They understand what this operation in Gaza is now, the one that we are currently maybe even starting, is actually. And I hear from a lot of people that, again, you know, specifically raising your voice and objecting to the IDF during a war is such a complicated act. I think the Israeli government is working very hard to make this, you know, to make the distinction of, you could only be 100% with everything that we do, or you support Hamas. You know, I'm not willing to live in that. Like, I'm not willing to fall into that categorization of the Israeli government. And you know, I think that's a pretty common stand. Like, you could see the majority of the world was standing with Israel after 7th of October. They funded its wars, they helped with attacking, they helped with defense. And now you see the stand of Israel. You see, you know, every time you go back to this, maybe, you know, this negotiation, every time that Israel is willing, you know, I don't even understand why we ever leave the negotiation table. But every time we're willing to come back to it, we come in a weaker position. We come with a worse deal. We come with less of an international leverage, less of a military leverage, because the IDF is falling apart under the fact that we are taking the actions that are currently speaking, that the way that the government is speaking out loud about what they want to do with Gaza against, you know, the stand of, again, the Chief of Staff, the Attorney General of the IDF, probably so many of Israel's officials. You know, every time we come back to this table, we come back in a weaker position. And I do think that we are in such a critical moment when you hear the Israeli government. We heard today Benjamin Netanyahu speaking about working toward an autocracy. We heard today Itamar Ben-Gvir speaking about how he could build houses on the beach of Gaza for the people who's willing to comply his authority. And you know, I do think like this, we're such in a critical position that the amount of lives that are on stake, and the fact that the Israeli government, I don't think, has the moral legitimacy and not the public legitimacy to make these decisions for the people of Israel. When you could see, like, the majority of we don't want this. Like, we're fighting back. We're speaking out. You see the amount of people showing up to serve. You see the public backlash. You see that all the opposition in Israel, from right and from left, is understanding that this war is political, that we're not working for a hostage deal, that they don't have any other plan. I don't know. Like, I don't see any other explanation. Like, I think that if you hold the stand that all of these evidence are just, you know, bullshit, and everyone's just like, we all just love Hamas and want the state of Israel to be erased, so you're a conspiracy theory. Like, that's not. I don't understand how you could hold that position. Like, that's so.
Yeah,
you know,
I'm afraid it's the way that I think a lot of people on the hard right in Israel have gone about trying to silence any criticism. They just immediately, they've done it to me, even though I always defended Israel's right to defend itself. In the moment I got more critical of what's been happening this year in particular, I was accused of being pro-Hamas, which is obviously ridiculous.
Yeah. I was accused of being pro-Hamas, and I was fighting in Gaza.
Literally look for any excuse to throw that out.
Yeah, final question, Yotam, before I bring in our other guest to debate with you. do you believe that the IDF has been committing war crimes in Gaza? US national debt is more than $37 trillion. And these are uncertain times for the global economy. It's enough to make you think, maybe now would be a good time to buy some gold. Whether it's a hedge against inflation, peace of mind during global instability, or just sensible diversification, Birch Gold Group believes that every American should own physical gold. And they created something special. Until the 30th of September, if you're a first-time buyer, Birch Gold is offering a rebate of up to $10,000 in free metals on qualifying purchases. To start the process, request a free information kit now. Just text PEERS, P-I-E-R-S, to 989 and to 9.
Style starts with the details. The difference between mid and next level, a real gold chain that hits. Lifetime guarantee. Over 36,000 five-star reviews and a free chain with every new order.
The Medadas do not forgive or forget.
You wake up in the morning, it's a brand new day. Blue skies above, it's a perfect day. Sunshine is shining just across the way.
Told, but what's left out, which concerns me. And when a friend in the business recommended I try Ground News, I gave it a go. Quite honestly, I was impressed. It does something brilliant, which most news platforms are afraid to do. It's an app and a website that lines up coverage of the same story from across the spectrum, left, right, international, and lays it all out side by side. That kind of transparency is increasingly rare and is vital. Ground News helps you to dig in and find the facts by showing you who owns each outlet, what their bias is, and which stories are being buried. It has an especially revealing blind spot feed, which services stories being reported almost exclusively by only one side of the political divide. I want to hear every side before making up my mind. Ground News makes that possible and easy. It's independent, funded by subscribers and not corporate interests, just like my show. And it's a tool that puts the power back in your hands. Go to groundnews.com/peers to claim your 40% discount to the unlimited access Vantage plan and see what everyone else is missing. That's groundnews.com/peers.
I think that well, it depends what you mean, because the IDF is, it's a lot of people, and they make, no one has to tell me how complicated war is. No one has to tell me how many choices you need to make every hour concerning people's lives, concerning your own life, your soldiers' lives.
All right, well, quick update. Let's just talk about it while we're waiting. 8 minutes, we're going to know what the rate cut is, or not rate cut. Here's the tea. This is happening really soon. Jerome Powell, our on-again, off-again GOAT. Certainly a key figure in all of our financial lives over the past, how many years has it been? 2017, maybe? So like 8 years? It's been a while. It's been a minute that Jerome Powell's been an important figure. And certainly was a key figure in COVID during the rates to zero money printing era. But he's nearing the end of his dynasty. Jerome Powell will likely be gone by early 26, so we're running out of FOMC meetings for him to have a key impact. And this is a very important one, because this is the one where he's expected to finally cut rates, as Trump has been demanding and demanding and demanding. Again, quick refresher, Trump has called him a numbskull, Trump has called him a very stupid person, Trump has called him too late.
The guy
Powell.
he put in office,
so
by the
today,
way.
in just 5 or 6 minutes probably, we're going
He was
to
the one
know
that brought him to
whether or not
Congress.
they've decided to actually cut rates. As a refresher, I do this every time, but it's good to have everybody caught up. If the FOMC thinks that inflation is the biggest problem, then they will want to raise rates or keep rates the same. If they think the job market declining and fewer jobs and harder to find a job, they think that's the biggest problem, then they will lower rates. That's the idea. And the sense is the job market is getting scarier and scarier faster than inflation is getting scary, though they both are a problem. The spooky thing is that we're kind of in a stagflationary environment where it seems like prices are going up, but also the job market's getting worse. So you don't have like an easy choice, which is why he's just been steady. He's been making no choices, really. He's been realistically, especially because we just had a BLS labor market revision of 1 million fewer jobs in the past year than we thought. It's likely they will cut rates today. But it is funny that Trump is simultaneously saying we have to cut rates, but also the bad jobs data is a lie. The jobs are actually good. Those two things are opposite statements. The only reason Jerome Powell would have to cut rates is if the jobs data was true, and it is bad. You can't say that everything is great, but also we desperately need to cut rates. It doesn't make any sense, but that is what is happening. So Trump pressure plus the weaker labor market data means very likely that the Fed's consensus will be crashed and we will get a 0.25 rate cut today. By the way, here's our interest rates for the past, I don't know, 50 years. Now, ignoring the insane time of the 80s when we got up to like 20%, let's look at like our lifetimes, okay? Your lifetimes probably start here. After 9/11. But okay, let's just go like the past 30 years. Couple interesting things to point out. Generally, rates climb up until something breaks. Then right when they start lowering them in a panic is when we get a recession. That happened in 2001, that happened in 2007, and now we are starting to lower rates again. Just worth noting that fact. Second thing worth noting is that this period where a lot of people in this chat or people watching sort of started to come of age in is a historical anomaly. After 2008, we had years of 0% interest rates, basically free money borrowing. That created a very weird economy that a lot of people have come up in. And the economy has gotten very addicted twice to essentially free borrowing. When we did this rapid rise in rates recently in like late 21, 22, people expected things to break. They haven't super broken yet, but it's clearly seeming like they're starting to. So that's where we're at. The main things to watch for today are, this is the expected outcome. If this happens, the market will react, I guess, semi-positively, but nothing's gonna, this is what's priced in. If we see a 0.5 basis point, a jumbo rate cut, it's called a jumbo rate cut, twice as big. If this happens, it is a clear sign of panic, of like, oh shit, things are really bad. Like the job market is actually really bad. We need to get ahead of it. So if we see a jumbo rate cut, it is definitely a sign that what data the Fed is seeing is scaring them. If we see no rate cut, the market will react really bad. If we see like nothing, zero, no change, then the market will freak out because they are expecting it to get easier to borrow money. This would say that the Fed is very scared about inflation. This would say that Jerome Powell has decided the risks from tariffs causing good inflation is too high. We have to keep the interest rates high to try and break the back of inflation. By the way, inflation is supposed to be at a 2% target, but we haven't gotten close to 2% yet. We're kind of bouncing around 3, and we're not close to 2. And so if we start lowering rates, we're never getting back to 2. Now, the last thing there's no chance we're going to raise rates. I think there's almost zero chance there's going to be like a plus 0.25. If that happened, it would be Armageddon, I guess. I mean, people would freak out. It would be disastrous. So the one thing we're looking for, it's going to happen in like a minute here, is if Jerome Powell says the words mid-cycle adjustment. If Jerome Powell says that, then that means, okay, yes, we're cutting rates by 0.25, but we're probably going to stall out there. We're not going to keep cutting. This alone would freak the market out because everybody's expecting them to cut and then at the next meeting cut again, the next meeting cut again. The idea is we're going to begin cutting all the way back down to 0. That is what everybody on Wall Street wants. That's what Trump wants, to juice his numbers into the midterms. That's what they want. That is what we're watching for. I think the cut today will be this, but we're kind of watching for the guidance of what's going to come next. What do they plan to do in the future? I mean, we can wait here. It just happened, so we'll know in just a second. It looks like we are getting, I would like a official, breaking. The Fed has cut by 0.25. Breaking the small cuts. Too late Powell has started to move. So this is the expected thing. So we're going to watch his press conference to see, first of all, what he thinks about the economy, what he thinks about inflation, and what he thinks about what they're going to do going forward. But since we have a little bit of time till he actually does the press conference, I want to talk about some drama that's been going on with the Federal Reserve in the background. So this drama is about Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. Not this Lisa Cook, this Lisa Cook. The main story here is that, if you guys don't know how it works, the FOMC has these 12 Fed governors. They all vote to decide whether or not to cut rates. She's one of them. And Trump, in an effort to stack the FOMC with people on his side to force rates down, has been trying to get her fired so we can replace her with somebody on his side, get rid of Jerome Powell in early 26, get a majority, and then be able to lower rates at will. So he's had a bit of a power play against Jerome Powell by trying to get her fired. This is Bill Pulte. You need to know who he is because it's a big part of this story. And you may have heard me talk about Bill Pulte in a video I did about him versus Scott Bessent, where Scott Bessent said, "I'm gonna punch you in your face." Bill Pulte, his background is, he's a rich kid. He inherited a lot of money from his grandfather, the founder of home building giant Pulte Group. So he got a big inheritance and then started giving away some of it, very small amounts, on Twitter to become famous. This is where you probably heard of him. In your lifetime, he was, for most years, the guy that gave away money on social media. He would post things like this: "Good evening, this beautiful mom and daughter need a handicap accessible van but can't afford it. Can you help? I'll match donations up to $1,000. Bro, you are inheriting a $1 billion fortune and you're matching $1,000. Wow.
Oh, that
extremely
hit.
generous. He would do like retweet to win giveaways, follow me to win giveaways. And then he would say things like, "I'm sitting on my couch right now, thinking about how many people we've helped this year and how happy I am to be alive and living this dream. To whoever out here that needs this, don't give up. I've done private planes and cars. I've been in the biggest meetings. I'm friends with many of the wealthiest people in the world, but nothing comes close to helping people on Twitter." Nobody. Me. And it's Patrick giving away money. And then he called his followers his teammates, people that just followed to win money. They're my teammates. So he becomes like social media famous because of this. At one point, he wins the award for Twitter Philanthropist of the Year, which is a very prestigious award that it turns out he created. Okay, so this guy's basically a nobody. He's just the grandson of a rich guy. But because of all of this, he gets this big social media following, which he then uses to try and get the attention of Donald Trump. If Donald Trump retweets this, I'll give $30,000 to a veteran on Twitter. This works. And through his social media following and his pro-Trump stance, he ends up becoming nominated by Donald Trump to head our federal housing finance agency. Despite no real qualifications. I mean, his grandfather knew house building, but he just inherited it. So now he is the head of our federal housing finance agency and is obviously a close Trump ally. Now this comes in handy when Donald Trump wants to get rid of Lisa Cook, because he gets Bill Pulte to pull the data on Lisa Cook's mortgages for the houses. She has 2 houses, and claim that she was claiming both of her properties as her primary residence, which would be mortgage fraud. I mean, it's minor, but it is mortgage fraud. The idea is that she claimed both of them as her primary residence, and therefore she must be removed. She can't be trusted. We can't put her in the Federal Reserve. She's committing mortgage fraud. So, for the first time in the Fed's 111-year history, a sitting governor was attempted to be removed by a president, which again, the Fed is supposed to be independent. The whole point is the president can't be bullying it, pushing it around, because it reduces the trustworthiness of our independent Federal Reserve. That's the idea. If it seemed like he controls it, then he can lower rates at will. So we tried to remove her. He said, it's a serious breach of trust. We have to protect the integrity of the Federal Reserve. Basically saying, this mortgage fraud is very serious. It's very important to me. We just simply can't stand for it. The only problem is, there's two problems.
What the fuck was that damage? Eight, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Number one is the documents have started to actually come out, and it turns out she didn't do that. She claimed her second residence as a vacation home, not a primary residence. First of all, not even true. But secondly, because of all the hullabaloo around this, because of all the drama, because of all the interest, because of all the looking into it, it turns out 3 of Trump's cabinet members did do this. They did do mortgage fraud. They did claim multiple primary residence as multiple houses as primary residence, including Labor Secretary.
That's crazy.
Chavez,
He's done the. He's the expert in finding that crime because he's the master criminal.
Lee Zeldin. All 3 of them that Trump appointed have claimed multiple residences as their primary residence. None of them are being investigated. None of them are getting fired. Despite saying that this is like extremely important for integrity, none of them are being followed up on. Additionally, this has just happened within the past 24 hours. Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, has also called 2 houses his principal residence. This is the highest up. This is even more important than her job. And it's not being discussed or followed up on. And additionally, Bill Pulte, the guy who Trump got to pull this data and accuse Lisa Cook, it turns out his parents both of his parents also have done this mortgage fraud. So it just seems a little bit hypocritical. It seems a bit crazy to focus on, I think it's very transparent what you're trying to do, which is gain control of the Federal Reserve. So thankfully, today, the appeals court rejected Trump's bid to fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook. And she did vote today. She was one of the votes that just happened in the last few minutes to lower rates 0.25. But she's still active. Trump cannot remove her for now. Remains to be seen what will happen next and how this will play out, but that is the current status of what's going on. So given all that, we are now a few minutes away and we're going to watch Jerome Powell's press conference again to see what he thinks about the job market, what he thinks about inflation expectations, and what they think about future rate cuts going forward. Is it live?
Job gains have slowed and downside risks to employment have risen. At the same time, inflation has risen recently and remains somewhat elevated.
Yeah.
In support of our goals and in light of the shift in the balance of risks, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to lower our policy interest rate by a 0.25 percentage point.
You gave in, Jerome.
We also decided to continue to reduce our securities holdings. Payroll job gains have slowed significantly to a pace of just 29,000 per month over the past 3 months.
Yeah, insanely low.
A good part of the slowing likely reflects a decline in the growth of the labor force due to lower immigration and lower labor force participation.
Bro, it's a nation
Even
of
so,
300
labor demand
million and
has
we're making
softened,
22,000
and the recent
jobs
pace
a
of
month
job
and they're
creation
low-quality jobs.
appears to be running below the break-even rate needed to hold the unemployment rate constant. The median projection for the unemployment rate is 4.5% at the end of this year and edges down thereafter.
No, never. I wish I could pause. Can I pause?
From its highs in mid-2022,
Never.
remains
Does it
somewhat
just
elevated
stop there
relative
and
to
go
our
back down
2%
next year?
longer-run
Never.
goal. Most measures of longer-term expectations remain consistent with our 2% inflation goal. The median projection in the SEP for total
These
PCE
projections
inflation
are
is 3.0%.
It's not going to magically go down next year after your cut rates.
Into 2.1% in 2027. Our monetary policy actions are guided by our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices.
I'll go on a dual
for the
mandate with
American
you,
people.
Jerome Powell.
The median participant projects that the appropriate level of the federal funds rate will be 3.6% at the end of this year.
Okay.
3.4%.
So they're
at the end of
expecting cuts.
2026,
More cuts.
And 3.1% at the end of 2027.
These are the votes.
This path is 1/4 percentage point lower than projected in June. Everything we do is in service to our public mission, and we at the Fed will do everything we can to achieve our maximum employment and price stability goals.
Okay.
Thank you. I look forward to our discussion.
But let's be real. Here's some questions. All right, we go. Fix your fucking system, Jerome Powell. Oh my God. Your third mandate should be a working tech stack.
I feel like our policy has been doing the right thing so far this year. I think we were right to wait and see how tariffs and inflation and the labor market evolve. I think we're now reacting to, to the much lower level of job creation and other evidence of softening in the labor market.
Okay, I just want to say, he's talking about the lower level of job creation because they revised down the numbers from the past year by 1 million jobs. So the times he was saying that we had good job creation weren't true. Now, I don't blame him for being data dependent, but it is kind of crazy that they have to have other ways of looking at the economy than just waiting for those numbers because those numbers are so consistently unreliable.
The SEP, once again, the median participant has inflation higher than previously expected by the end of next year, and the Fed not getting back to the 2% target until
I get hit by that every fucking time.
Christ. They said that the median voter in this Fed meeting is saying that we won't get back till 2% until 2028. That is 3 years of inflation running hot. I mean, prices are going to be fucking insane. And that's if they're right. Realistically, they're probably going to change it by 28, especially if they're cutting rates now, dude. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think cutting rates, I get the labor market is bad, and I can justify this cut. I get it, but man, it's like inflation is what really kills regular people. If we don't cut rates and the economy does somewhat tank, people will lose jobs, and that is painful, and I get that. But the real people that will be hurt are falling asset prices, falling stock market, falling housing prices. And that stuff is actually really good for regular people because it lets them get in on the economy. I don't know. I think...
Webster Store.
30 chairs, non-squeak.
Webster
15 non-wobble.
Webster
Store. Lights.
Webster Store.
Where are we going to find all this stuff?
I already ordered it.
Huh? All of it?
Webster Store for whatever your restaurant needs.
Tempted to go gargoyles here. Is that nutty?
Only ESPN gives you over 1,000 college football games, and you can watch in multi-view. Don't miss all the exciting action from kickoff to the college football playoff. Plus, College Game Day, college football's #1 pregame show.
I think cutting is again trying to reinflate this fucking balloon for boomers. I get having no job. Again, it's a balance. I get it. I understand that eventually people have to have fucking jobs. I think inflation is the slow and insidious killer, bro. Inflation is the one that makes people literally disconnect from society. Once you feel like you're falling behind the rate of inflation, it's over.
Really, since April, to me, the risks of higher and more persistent inflation have probably become a little less. And that's partly because the labor market has softened, GDP growth has slowed. So I would just say that...
Okay, small pause, and I'll let the rest of it run. This is probably the most negative we've ever seen Powell in a meeting. We've watched a lot of these. People have watched this with me. This is the most negative he's been on the economy in any one of them. He's like pretty much consistently saying inflation is really bad and job market is really bad. And he's like he's not like defending it like he usually does. He's not like, well, it's strong. This is like very negative. Like he even looks kind of defeated, bro. He's quiet quitting.
Michael McKee from Bloomberg Radio and television.
I mean, okay, sorry to pause again, but like I feel for him in that he is like trying to maintain Fed independence while the president is trying to fire people on the Fed, add new people who are connected to the White House, trying to fire him, accusing him of things. He knows he's going to be gone by early 26. He's got 2 mandates that are going in opposite directions that are very hard. I get that it's a hard job. I'm not even personally blaming Jerome Powell here. I'm just saying it's like, man, this is tough.
I wouldn't say that all of what's happening in the labor market is due to tariffs. I mean, you clearly have a slowing in it due to immigration. You clearly have a slowing in demand, which is now perhaps more than that in supply. And we know that because the unemployment rate has ticked up.
Okay, he's saying demand is slowing. What I want to say is, just so you understand, high-income Americans are behind roughly half of all U.S. consumer spending. The highest it's been since the data goes back to 1989. So what we have is that the economy is being kept up by people in the top 10% spending, the K-shaped economy. If the rich boomers stop going on vacations and going out to restaurants and buying golf trips, and if they stop doing that, the economy is going to fall apart. It's the last thing keeping things going. Nobody else has money to spend that's not borrowed. Why does Big A look sad? It's almost like, listen, we've been saying this on the stream for a very long time, but it's almost sad when Jerome Powell finally admits it, because it makes me realize that, like, it was kind of nice when he still denied it. You know? It kind of gives you like this shadow of like, okay, well, maybe, you know, but now it's like, bro, he's just being so real about it. He's like, inflation is bad, but the job market is even worse, so we gotta do what we gotta do.
What are you about the slowdown in the job market for households at home, especially younger Americans struggling to land a job?
So it's an interesting labor market, and obviously we think it's appropriate that we reduce our rates so that we become more neutral, which presumably will be better for the labor market. You see people who are sort of more at the margins, so kids coming out of college and younger people, minorities are having a hard time finding jobs. The overall job finding rate is very, very low. However, the layoff rate is also very low. So you've got a low firing, low hiring environment, and the concern is that if you start to see layoffs, the people who are laid off there won't be a lot of hiring going on. So that could very quickly flow into higher unemployment.
By the way, I'm just going to say it here. I've said this a million times. This is what's going to happen. It's not the first time in history this has happened. You have a low hire, low fire thing because jobs are afraid of letting go of their employees because they're worried it's going to be hard to ride them back. But then once the dam breaks and people start firing, it becomes a flood. And then there's layoffs everywhere and there's no jobs to be found. It's bad. That is what is going to happen, almost certain. When the employment rate starts ticking up, it never just stops, like they say. It never just goes flat. I want to pull the graph, but it never just goes flat. This is the U.S. employment rate, okay? Do you ever notice a time where it's flat? Whenever it hits a low, it starts ticking up, and it always spikes up. When the unemployment rate hits a low, bounces off, and starts going up, it's a snowball effect. When it's getting better, it gets better really fast because jobs getting hired creates more spending, creates more jobs. But jobs getting fired creates less spending, creates less jobs. They both snowball in opposite directions. So the idea that the projection is we're going to get to like employment right here and it's going to freeze at 4.5 is absurd. It's never happened that way and it won't happen that way. I'm not crazy for saying this, and it's like disingenuous for him to imply that it's not. I guess he has to do that to not panic people, but people are saying 65. Okay, but that's okay. Okay, sure. I mean, this is down, then flat, then down, then it bounces off the lows. It's not like it bounces off the lows, then evens out. And you're saying 77. Wait, rockets up, then flattens out, then rockets up again? You're saying 6-7. I'm so stupid. You're just saying 6-7 because you're fucking Twitch chatters. I'm actually like looking at like, 67, what are you talking about?
See the court case around Lisa Cook as being related to questions of Fed independence?
You know, I see it as a court case that it would be inappropriate for me to comment on.
Oh my
so
God.
Generous, dude. If I was in his position,
They got saved so hard by that.
I guess
That's
too
wild.
political, so.
The revisions for June were the first negative revisions we've seen since December of 2020. You know, how can the Fed base important decisions on rate and what to do with interest rates on data that seems to be, as you've called it in the past, noisy?
So on the QCEW, the revision that we saw was almost exactly what we expected. It was amazing how close the expectation was. So, and the reason for that is, for the last bunch of quarters, there's been almost a predictable overcount. And I think the Bureau of Labor Statistics really does understand this, and they're working hard to fix it. It's got to do, of course, it has something to do with low response rates.
Birth-death model, right?
It's also got to do with what's called the birth-death model. Because a good amount of job.
I'm predicting what he's gonna say. Dude, I swear to God, you can get this stuff from my channel, dude. I'm in tune on this shit, bro. I promise you. I've covered the birth-death model. It's live, bro.
Happens.
And you're the same age, too?
Response rates are just lower to surveys now, both in and out of the government. And it's no great secret. You know, we want higher response rates, and we need those to have, less volatile data. And
bro, I just gotta be real. I'm sorry to pause so many times, but this is all very important. The idea that we still base these judgments on how many jobs there are in America based on surveys from phone calls is crazy. He's saying the response rates have gotten low. Of course, nobody answers the fucking phone anymore. So we're getting like tiny fractions of people that answer the phone and basing the entire jobs numbers off that. It's become comical. The response rates have gotten so low. I just think it's a joke. I mean, so many other, I'm getting this data from other people, but people have found out other ways to measure the health of the labor market, and I'm reading them, and they turn out to be more accurate. That's why we're able to call that, the job market is bad a year ahead of what they're saying from the BLS, because it's just crazy. We still use that as our main method. I think it's wild.
We have to live life looking through the windshield rather than the rearview mirror, as you know, and all I can tell you is we see where we are now, and we take appropriate action. We took that appropriate action today.
That's a bar. That's a bar.
The growth mix right now seems very concentrated in investment and on the consumer spending side in the higher income groups. Do you feel that that's an unsustainable mix for the economy moving forward?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, you're right. Those are two. We're getting unusually large amounts of economic activity through the AI build out and corporate investment. I don't know how long that will go on. No one does. In terms of spending, you saw that the consumer spending numbers were well above expectations, and that may well be skewed toward higher earning consumers.
It's not may well, it is. Okay? The economy is big companies spending on AI data centers and regular boomers in the top 10% going on vacations and going to restaurants. That is the economy right now. It's not may. It is. That is what it is, and you know it. That's what's happening. Okay? And if either of those two things crack, we're boned.
A lot of anecdotal evidence to suggest that. Nonetheless, it's spending. So, I mean, I think the economy is it's moving along. Economic growth is going to be 1.5%.
Dude, he's depressed. I've never heard him say the economy is. It's moving along. Dude, he always says it's strong, it's thriving, it's I think
It's
the
definitely
economy is
existing.
at its
I
core
can
very
tell
healthy.
you that
That's
much.
crazy. It's moving along is what you say, like it's like when someone asks you how you're
Time is
doing,
moving forward,
and you're like,
and that's
I'm
all I have
doing.
to say about that.
How's it going? It's going. It's like, oh, you want to kill yourself.
As I mentioned earlier, there are no risk-free paths now. It's not incredibly obvious what to do. So we have to keep our eye on inflation. At the same time, we cannot ignore and must keep our eye on maximum employment, which is those are our two equal goals. And you will see that they're a range of
warming up. He's trying to get back into it.
We came together today at the meeting and acted with a.
You just hit him midi. He's getting loose.
Economic activity is holding in, and it's a good bit from consumption. It looks like consumption was stronger than expected. What we got earlier this week, and also we're getting a fairly narrow sector is producing a lot of economic activity, which is the AI build out and business investment. So
yeah,
we watch all of it, and I would say we did move up the median.
Let me give you a theory. Let me just give you a little theory, Jerome Powell. What if this AI build out is not producing the profits needed, so it starts to slow down? At the same time, this consumption spending is primarily fueled by debt. People using credit cards, people buying auto loans, and that starts to slow down as people are unable to pay their loans, BNPL, all that. At which point, whatever was keeping consumption in the economy going collapses, and the risks to the labor market go higher. Let's just posit that theory. That seems more and more likely.
Given the cumulative impact of high interest rates on the housing sector, I'm wondering how
Just the game
concerned you
theory.
are that current rate levels are exacerbating housing affordability issues and potentially hindering household formation and wealth accumulation for a segment of the population.
Housing is an interest-sensitive activity, so it's at the very center of monetary policy. When the pandemic hit and we cut rates to zero, the housing companies were incredibly grateful, and it was really, they said that was the only thing that kept them going, was that we cut so aggressively and provided credit and things like that. And they were.
I'm so glad that we cut rates to zero to help the housing companies keep their prices up. That had long-term benefits for regular people. This is Google Trends history for people Googling help with mortgage, Jerome Powell. It has not been this high since 2008.
The other side of that is when inflation gets high and we raise rates, and you're right, it does burden the housing industry, and so rates have come
then?
down a bit, and as that happens, we don't set.
We got a fire movie called The Big Short, actually, so maybe it's worth it.
Thanks very much.
Okay, he's done. A sad display, but the old goat laced up one last time to get out there. He's actually got a few more before 2026. They do 8 of these a year. There's one in December, and then there's going to be probably one more before I think he's got 2 or 3 left. I got respect for Jerome Powell. He's got a very tough job. He has the president and the power of the president bearing down on him. A lot of political pressure, a lot of legal pressure. The economy's cracking from both angles. I know that I'm yelling at him in this meeting, but I don't personally blame him as a human being. However, boy howdy, if you are listening to this and you're thinking, oh, it's fine, he said the economy's strong, trust your gut. That is not true. And by the way, just go back and listen to the very last meeting and watch the change in tone from then to now. It's clearly deteriorating. It's clearly. Now, he's not trying to panic everybody, but man, it's very, very obvious that the risks to both inflation and the job market are getting worse.
Just found this unbelievable sequin dress on eBay from a seller who's probably a Vegas showgirl. Then I was craving something sporty, found these in a sick.
Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, your daily dive in the news. And once again, we have a lot to break down today, starting with this. It's now been a week since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and there's just more and more that we're having to talk about with this. We'll start with updates around his suspected killer, who had his first virtual court appearance yesterday, where you saw him saying his name, standing silently against a wall, and now and then nodding along while wearing a vest designed to prevent self-harm. And as far as the specific charges against him, those included aggravated murder, felony discharge of a firearm, 2 counts of obstructing justice, 2 counts of witness tampering, and the commission of a violence offense in the presence of a child. And you had prosecutors yesterday confirming, yes, they will be pursuing the death penalty. Also beyond that, we learned more with Utah County Attorney Jeffrey Gray revealing that it was the suspect's own mother who kicked off the sequence of events leading to his arrest.
The day after the shooting, Robinson's mother saw the photo of the shooter in the news and thought the shooter looked like her son. Robinson's mother called her son and asked him where he was. He said he was at home sick and that he had also been at home sick on September 10th. Robinson's mother expressed concern to her husband that the suspect shooter looked like Robinson. Robinson's father agreed.
You then also had Gray at one point claiming that the suspect's mother
Explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented.
Gray also said that the mom said that her son had started to date his roommate, who she claimed was a biological male, transitioning genders. Gray adding,
this resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views.
And then with that, you had Gray pointing to text messages between Robinson and his roommate as a key piece of evidence. You know, we talked about that a little yesterday, but to get into more detail, the roommate allegedly received a text message from the suspect which said, "Drop what you're doing, look under my keyboard." The roommate then apparently did as instructed and found a note that said, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." And then after reading that note, the roommate responded, "What? You're joking, right?" With it appearing that Robinson then responded by saying that he couldn't leave the area because of police activity, also saying that he still had to grab his rifle, which he had stashed nearby. When the roommate asked again whether or not he did it, Robinson replied, I'm sorry," to which the roommate answered, "I thought they caught the person." Robinson then responded, "No, they grabbed some crazy old dude that interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down." Right, as far as that crazy old guy that was mentioned, who was briefly detained moments after Kirk was hit, that appears to be 71-year-old George Zinn, and according to Utah County Sheriff Michael Smith, Zinn admitted to police that he had yelled that he was the shooter to allow the actual suspect to flee. And according to reports, what he said specifically was, "I shot him, now shoot me." And now he's actually being held on obstruction of justice charges, although separately he's reportedly been charged with possession of child sex abuse material. Also, a key thing to know here is that the sheriff has currently said that there's no evidence that Zinn was actually working with the shooter in any way.
Well,
Apparently,
tempted
this
for the
guy is, like,
talisman.
well known among organizers of public events in Salt Lake City, with, for example, the New York Times reporting he showed up frequently to public forums with the intention to disrupt the event or question a high-profile speaker. But then, going back to the text messages, you reportedly also had the roommate asking why he did it, to which he replied, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I'm able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it." With the suspect then saying that he had been planning to do this for a bit over a week, and that the messages engraved on the casings from the rifle were mostly a big meme. It's saying, "If I see notices bulge ooh on Fox News, I might have a stroke," and then telling the roommate to delete this exchange before saying that he turned himself in willingly, with his last message saying, "You are all I worry about, love. Don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent." Right now, what we've seen since that's been said and reported is just so many theories swirling around online, basically claiming that the messages don't sound like a real conversation between two young people. Or there are people saying that it just too conveniently lays out everything that authorities need to make a case. You're even seeing some suggesting that the messages were written by the FBI. So then at the same time, you have others arguing that the suspect and his roommate might have staged this conversation to provide an alibi for the roommate. Or those in this camp suggesting that the roommate was actually involved or knew about the plan beforehand. And that being tied into the effort that we're seeing from some to use this against the transgender community. Right. And then in addition to all of that is the Israel of it all. Because one of the big theories is that Israel is involved or somehow behind Kirk's death. You also had people like longtime friend to Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, at the very least looking to counter the public narratives around Charlie Kirk having the best relationship with Israeli or Jewish leadership.
The truth is that Charlie was under immense pressure and he was facing financial threats.
over his.
That sun-drenched breeze, that mid-afternoon champagne glow. You'd think our old stories wouldn't still make us laugh this hard, but they only get better.
Shifting stance on Israel over who he was hosting, from his podcast to people that were on stage at America Fest, Dave Smith, Tucker Carlson. That is reality, my friends. Again, want those people to know your money means nothing to me. I already said no to it.
And it's really expanded from there. Tucker Carlson saying that Charlie Kirk revealed to him that he really didn't like Bibi Netanyahu.
He felt that Bibi Netanyahu was a very destructive force. He was appalled by what was happening in Gaza.
And then also at one point, Tucker talked about the pressure that Kirk was under around Israel before his assassination.
He was dependent to a great extent on his donors, of course. It's a nonprofit. And they went after him and tormented him. Not all, of course, many were supportive, but the ones who were offended by my speech, and there was a small, very intense group who were, tormented Charlie Kirk until the day he died. 2 days before he died, he lost a $2 million donation because he had publicly pledged to bring me to the next Turning Point conference in December. And he told me over the past couple of months he was losing a lot of donations over that pledge. They put out a flyer basically saying that I was going to be giving a speech. And so he would text me and say, man, I'm really taking a lot of heat for this. And people are really mad. The American Jewish Committee called in a statement Charlie Kirk an anti-Semite and, quote, dangerous. Charlie Kirk, an anti-Semite. He was not an anti-Semite.
But then at the same time, you have people like Senator Ted Cruz tweeting, I'm getting really tired of Tucker and his cronies falsely claiming Charlie agreed with me that Israel is terrible and the problem in America is all the damn Jews, saying I knew Charlie well, and indeed the very last conversation we had was how deeply concerned he was about the rising toxic wave of anti-Semitism on the right. But that is also just a small taste of what's been happening on that front. But at the same time, while that appears to have been happening organically, you're also seeing reports that pro-Iranian groups have been pushing conspiracy as well, with a number of people saying this is just one of the ways that foreign powers maybe spreading disinformation about Kirk's killing in order to sow even further division in the United States. And that is also, we're seeing reports that Russian groups are actually trying to tie Kirk's death to U.S. support for Ukraine, with some even spreading the lie that the Ukrainian government killed Kirk because of his criticism of that aid. But again, a lot of this isn't about the creation of, it's the amplification of. Right? You've got people out there like a senior research manager at the Institute for Strategic Dialogue noting that in many cases, the campaigns, they're not adding new claims, but they're recycling ones that just emerge naturally from American users. It's saying they're picking up domestic actors and amplifying them. Which then with that, I'll say brings us to another aspect of the situation, and that is a lot of people are talking about what this means about social media in general on multiple levels. Because for one, the suspect's been described as someone that's chronically online, which is something that describes a lot of people nowadays, especially young people. And it's also come to describe a growing number of people who have committed violent acts in the US, with, for example, The Guardian reporting that, quote, in recent years, a growing number of shooters have left behind writings, whether full manifestos or single sentence posts online that contain nihilistic in-jokes and references that aim to differentiate their extremely online cohort from the normies who will struggle to understand them. And with that, you have them pointing to perpetrators of mass shootings in Texas, New York, California, and even New Zealand, just to name a few. And then, connected to that, there's also the fact that conspiracy theories and divisive content are actually being pushed into social media feeds by design, because that's one of the big kinds of content that keeps people on the platforms for longer periods of time, which is also something you saw Utah Governor Spencer Cox pointing out a few days ago. It's like the most powerful companies in the history of the world have figured out how to hack our brains, get us addicted to outrage, and get us to hate each other. And also, I'll say, regarding Governor Cox, he has kind of stood out for a number of reasons, but especially because he's someone that, on the Republican side, has not joined the chorus of people who have just blamed the entire left. And that has resulted in things like Obama praising Cox for his handling of the situation, though at the same time, Steve Bannon has called Cox a national embarrassment and even said he should be investigated. And then all of that, of course, is Donald Trump, members of his administration, and many Republican lawmakers have just kept turning up the temperature. We're continuing to insist that political violence and the rhetoric fueling it is just a problem on one side, with Senator Eric Schmidt, for example, saying yesterday,
we've heard years of the left, their loudest voices calling anyone on the right extremists, MAGA Republicans, fascists, Nazis, an existential threat to democracy. Check yourself. And don't give me this both sides bullshit.
And with this, I'll start by saying Schmidt is not lying when he says that people, including prominent Democrats, have used this type of language before. Though notably, one, there are experts on democracy and fascism who have said that language isn't without reason. And even J.D. Vance once compared Trump to Hitler. But also separately from that, Trump literally called Kamala Harris fascist multiple times on the campaign trail. And there's a long list of violent remarks that Trump has made, including, for example, suggesting that General Mark Milley should be executed. Right? And the point of all that isn't to just keep playing the blame game and say, hey, it's all the Republicans' fault, but just to be very clear about the hypocrisy of what people like this are saying. Right? And that is also true if you're just looking at randos on social media. You can find people saying outrageous shit in every unique flavor you can think of. But then also, of course, when it comes to actual political violence that has taken place, we should look at the data. Because The Economist, for example, pointed to an analysis of felony criminal cases involving political violence done by researchers at the University of Cincinnati. And what you see there is that extremists on both the left and right commit violence, but more incidents appear to come from right-leaning attackers. Also, another study looking at political violence between 1990 and 2020 found that there were far more frequent and deadly attacks by the hard right than the hard left, although left-wing violence increased throughout the study period. You also had the Anti-Defamation League finding that from 2010 to 2019, 76% of extremist-related murders were committed by those on the right. Also, the Cato Institute found that over the last 5 years, 81 people have been killed by political violence in the United States, and right-wing terrorists account for over half of them. And the Center for Strategic and International Studies analyzed almost 1,000 terrorist plots between 1994 and 2020, and they concluded right-wing attacks and plots account for the majority of all terrorist incidents in the United States since 1994. Though also, as we're talking about data and studies, we should know that after Kirk's murder, the Justice Department actually removed a government study based on 3 decades of research, which also found that far-right extremists have killed far more Americans than any other domestic terrorist group. But of course, none of that means that Trump's gonna actually back down on his vow to punish the so-called radical left, which really, the more that he talks, just sounds like anyone on the left that does not like him. And with that, we're seeing his teams reportedly crafting an executive order nominally aimed at combating political violence and hate speech that could come as soon as this week. Right? And so we're gonna have to wait to see what that actually looks like. Though one thing we know is that they're talking about targeting tax-exempt statuses of nonprofits, right? And possibly by designating them as domestic terrorist organizations.
Southern New Hampshire University's mission statement is designed to test the boundaries of higher education, which ways we can support our students and faculty members, with an average time to answer as 30 seconds and most handle times around 16 minutes, allowing us to have higher customer service, higher efficiency, and quicker resolution.
And also with this, I'll say you had Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche saying yesterday that even people noisily protesting Trump could face investigation if, quote, it's part of an organized effort to inflict harm and terror and damage the United States. Right, with that being part of a defense of Trump's comments earlier in the week that Attorney General Pam Bondi should prosecute people who loudly protested outside of a restaurant where he had dinner last week. Right, and with that, you also had Blanche trying to do some damage control on Bondi's comments about prosecuting hate speech, which she herself had to try to walk back, and she said, oh, I'm only talking about speech promoting violence, even though initially that's not really what it sounded like she was talking about. But in any case, a key thing that Trump said that he asked Pam to do is to look into prosecuting those protesters by bringing RICO cases against them. And that's something that he's been talking about a lot lately. I mean, he's called for a RICO investigation into George Soros without providing any evidence of wrongdoing. He's suggested it might be one of his ways of going after the left-wing groups that he's blaming for Kirk's death. For those that don't know, RICO, it's the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. It basically allows prosecutors to charge everyone in a criminal organization, even if certain individuals weren't directly involved in the crime. It's a decades-old law that's been used against the mob, and notably, Ted Cruz is already pushing a bill that would expand the law's powers, mainly by adding rioting to the list of offenses that could be used to bring a case. Right? And that would potentially enable federal prosecutors to seek charges against and seize the assets of organizations and individuals who fund or coordinate protests that result in violence. So separate from the legality of this, you have experts saying that, even if they don't win, the intimidation, the legal costs, it all has an impact. So, this is definitely something we're going to have to keep our eyes on because it does appear to be part of a concerted effort to crack down. But then in a quick 1-minute break that helps keep the show free for you, let me say, I didn't buy Tecovas to suddenly become a boots guy. But when something looks and feels as good, it just happens. I mean, my Cartwrights and Scotch Goat, it changed my game. They work with jeans, chinos, whatever. I mean, I'd even wear them to a wedding if someone promised brisket. And that's the thing about our sponsor, Tecovas. They nailed both style and comfort without the usual break-in boot camp, right? Every pair is handmade in over 200 steps using premium cowhide and exotic leathers. I mean, it's true craftsmanship. When I put them on, it's an instant vibe shift. You stand a little straighter, you feel a little sharper, and maybe even cooler than you actually are. Also, big recommend, if you ever see a Tecova store, go. Free drinks, free boot shines, expert fitting, and even custom leather stamping. But also, Tecovas, it's not just about looking good. Their work boots are built for real life. Waterproof, Goodyear welt construction, safety toe, slip resistant, even electrical hazard protection. So whether you're talking ranch, job site, or just pretending you know how to fix a sink, you're covered. Tecova's boots are authentic, durable, and built to feel your country. Protesters projected images of him and Jeffrey Epstein onto the castle. And they even played videos of the two together, projected the alleged letter from Epstein's birthday book, and a quote where Epstein said, "I was Donald's closest friend for 10 years, with then 4 people being arrested for reportedly malicious communications. Right? And those arrested were between 36 and 60 years old, and authorities said they stopped the projections quickly and an investigation is underway. But that wasn't the only major stunt that called out Trump's ties to Epstein, because you also had a group called Everyone Hates Elon taking credit for displaying a massive banner of Trump and Epstein outside of Windsor Castle. Also in the town of Windsor, there was a truck driving around with an image of the two with the text, "Welcome to the UK, Donald." Right? And there is a history of protesters turning out in the UK when Trump visits, and there are many other demonstrations in the country against Trump right now, focused more on his policy rather than just the Epstein scandal. But this comes as, Epstein is a hot button issue over there, right? Because at least for the first thing, the Prince Andrew of it all. But then also, just last week, Prime Minister Keir Starmer fired the country's ambassador to the US over his ties to Epstein. You had multiple news outlets publishing emails that the ambassador had sent to Epstein, including one where he suggested that Epstein's conviction was wrongful and should be challenged. So you had Starmer saying, if he had known about this, he would have never appointed him, and he claimed those emails cut across the whole approach that I've taken on violence against women and girls for many years in this government. Right, and all of this as Starmer is set to meet with Trump during the visit to discuss a tech deal, the war in Ukraine, and a lot more. It is expected that they're likely going to face Epstein-related questions during this time as well, especially because in addition to everything happening in the UK, over in the States, we're getting Epstein updates. Because the House Oversight Committee just released the transcript of Attorney General Bill Barr's deposition yesterday, and in some standout moments, he shut down conspiracy theories about Epstein's death, saying, quote, "It was undoubtedly suicide," with Barr claiming that there was evidence about his state of mind pointing to suicide, and he just didn't think that it was possible for someone to reach Epstein without being caught on camera. He even called the video the icing on the cake, though he did acknowledge that there did appear to be a blind spot in the footage, as well as other errors made in the prison. And then, as far as Trump, you had Barr saying that he only discussed Epstein with the president on 2 occasions. One, when Epstein came up as the news of the day in a conversation, and Trump apparently said he had broken things off with Epstein a long time ago and pushed him out of Mar-a-Lago. And then also when Barr informed Trump of Epstein's death, with Barr apparently telling Trump something to the effect of, "You better brace for this." And according to Barr, Trump, quote, "had the same reaction I did, which was, how the hell did that happen? He's in federal custody." But also, that situation's not over, because the House committee is set to interview more people and is seeking even more information from Epstein's estate. So we're gonna have to keep our eyes on this. But then next up in the news today, we gotta talk about how RFK Jr. just got called out on the Senate floor by Dr. Susan Monares. Right, and she was the CDC director until RFK Jr. forced her out last month, and today she told her side of the story. And specifically, you had her testifying before the Senate Health Committee alongside Dr. Deb Howry, one of the 3 top CDC officials who resigned in protest after her firing. Very notably, the chairman of that committee, Bill Cassidy, was a crucial Republican holdout during Kennedy's confirmation hearing. So we then finally voted for RFK after getting a promise that the new health secretary wouldn't threaten vaccine access. Promise that's now clearly in tatters, as RFK, among other things, fired the entire vaccine advisory panel known as ACIP and filled it with people who have been described as anti-vaxxers and vaccine skeptics. Right, all of which led to the Senate Finance Committee calling him up for questioning last week, and he defended his purge as absolutely necessary.
If we don't end this chronic disease, we are the sickest country in the world. That's why we have to fire people at CDC. They did not do their job. This was their job to keep us healthy.
Thank you,
and I need to fire some of those people to make sure this doesn't happen again.
With that then bringing us today, where we got to hear from 2 of those people, starting with Monares herself, who said that on August 19th, RFK told her she would need prior approval from political leadership for policy and personnel decisions. Then on August 21st, she said that she was told to return from Atlanta to DC immediately, which she said she was unwilling to do because it would have meant that she would miss the memorial for the police officer who died during the shooting by an anti-vax gunman at CDC headquarters that month. Which also, say, with that, Monares testified that RFK never gave the agency so much as a courtesy call after that attack. But regardless, everything seems to have come to a head on August 25th when she apparently had a very contentious meeting with Kennedy.
Secretary Kennedy demanded 2 things of me that were inconsistent with my oath of office and the ethics required of a public official.
There's nothing like college football. You gotta love everything that comes with it.
How you feel? I'm excited to play football. Go get him.
Big 12 football is on TNT Sports. It's in the name. It's big.
He directed me to commit in advance to approving every ACIP recommendation, regardless of the scientific evidence. He also directed me to dismiss career officials responsible for vaccine policy without cause. He said if I was unwilling to do both, I should resign. I responded that I could not pre-approve recommendations without reviewing the evidence, and I had no basis to fire scientific experts.
Right, or in other words, I'll just let her anger translator Bernie Sanders put it a little more clearly.
She took the radical position that she wanted to examine the scientific facts before drawing conclusions. It is absurd to have to say this in the year 2025. But vaccines are safe and effective.
Right, but then continuing with Manara, she said that she resisted RFK's demands and he just blew up.
He called, in that context, CDC the most corrupt federal agency in the world, emphasized that CD employees were horrible people. He said that CDC employees were killing children and they don't care. He said that CDC employees were bought by the pharmaceutical industry. He said CDC forced people to wear masks and social distance like a dictatorship. And the one I think that hurt me the most was a particularly vivid phrase he said during the COVID outbreak. CDC told hospitals to turn away sick COVID patients until they had blue lips before allowing them to get treatment.
Manara then also said that after her meeting with Kennedy, she informed the health committee that she was concerned that she might not be able to keep the commitments to integrity and transparency that she had made to it. Right? And then the committee reportedly reached out to the White House for an explanation, and when RFK found out, apparently he was not happy.
He was very concerned that I had spoken to members of Congress, and he told me I was never to do it again.
Which, if that is true, that is a very serious big deal, because the health committee, it's meant to oversee HHS, so ordering executive appointees not to speak, it arguably denies the legislative branch its power of oversight. And that's without mentioning that, it would break the Trump administration's promise of so-called radical transparency when it comes to health policy. Right, but anyway, after that exchange, both Manara and Kennedy, they agree that there was a discussion of her trustworthiness, but they disagree about what was said.
I told her that she had to resign because I asked her, are you a trustworthy person? And she said no.
Secretary Kennedy told me he could not trust me. I told the secretary that if he believed he could not trust me, he could fire me.
Right, and regardless of whichever version of events you believe, RFK saying, I can't trust you, her saying, well, if you can't trust me, you could fire me, or RFK saying, can I trust you? And then the person saying no, regardless of whichever version of events sounds more realistic to you, Kennedy did end up firing her a couple of days later, claiming that it was because she admitted to being untrustworthy, while she says it was because she wouldn't rubber stamp his panel's decisions before knowing what those decisions even were or even seeing evidence.
I could have kept the office, the title, but I would have lost the one thing that cannot be replaced: my integrity.
Right, and then you had Deb Howery, who, by the way, was the agency's chief medical officer, saying much the same thing.
I resigned because CDC leaders were reduced to rubber stamps, supporting policies not based in science, and putting American lives at risk. I first learned that the secretary had changed our CDC COVID vaccine guidance on an ex-social media post.
And then illustrating just how cut off she and other scientists were from the political leadership, she said that neither she nor any center directors ever briefed Kennedy about anything.
We would have loved to have had the conversations with him. I offered to 2 different HHS leaders that we would like to brief the secretary. He never received that, and many times I would send emails to our leadership team to share with HHS when he did say things that weren't scientifically correct, so that we could help support him. But our requests were not received to brief him.
But then also a big standout from this is, just like the Democrats grilled RFK during his testimony, Republicans went after Manara's during this one, where they accused her of being a political partisan, hiring anti-Trump lawyers, trying to humiliate Trump, that type of thing. You also ended up seeing some back and forths like this thing with Rand Paul during his 5 minutes.
Does the COVID vaccine prevent transmission?
When you have reduced viral load, you will have reduced transmission.
But in other words, it doesn't prevent transmission. You can still transmit the virus if you've had the vaccine. Does the COVID vaccine reduce hospitalization for children under 18?
It can.
It doesn't. Does the COVID vaccine reduce the rate of death for children under 18?
It can.
Once again, it can. That's a ridiculous answer. No, it doesn't.
I just would not pre-commit to approving all the ACIP recommendations without the science.
Untrue.
But then also, at least one Republican chairman,
At least I got one
Cassidy, has
win that
clearly had
round.
enough
Holy
of what he's seen
fuck.
from RFK.
If someone is fired 29 days after every Republican votes for her,
Take the wins where you can.
the Senate confirms her. The secretary said in her swearing in that she has, quote, unimpeachable scientific credentials, and the president called her an incredible mother and dedicated public servant. Like, what happened? Did we fail?
And that question, it appears to be a sensitive one for him because for the past several months, he's been walking a tightrope when it comes to this committee. Right, on one side, he himself is very pro-vaccine. I mean, he's a licensed physician outside of his political office, but then on the other hand, he's a Republican and one who's facing a primary challenge back in his home state of Louisiana. And so now that he's already confirmed RFK, he has to balance his conviction that what the health secretary is doing is wrong with the political pressure being put on him by the system. The one, I don't think really, no matter what he does, is gonna give him political will with people that are like, you're responsible for this. And two, all the while this is playing out, you have Kennedy's people still chugging along. And in fact, RFK's newly stacked vaccine advisory panel is set to hold its second meeting tomorrow. And then I've got more news for you in just a minute, but first let me say, 4.4 million Americans just got screwed when TransUnion, yes, that TransUnion, was hacked on August 28th. Names, social security numbers, emails, phone numbers, billing addresses dumped onto the dark web, and Texans alone, 377,000 plus hit. These agencies, they're supposed to protect our data, but it's also not just hacks.
Oh, nice.
Even if you never signed up with a company, your information can still leak. I mean, I found my own details on a random site. So don't wait for a breach to hit you. Protect yourself with the 300.com. Then next up today, we should talk about how the Trump administration is cutting the federal government off at the knees regarding the fight against human trafficking. Right, that is what we're learning from this insane new investigation from The Guardian. Because Team Trump, they've reportedly cut key initiatives for fighting human trafficking in 5 different departments of the federal government. We're talking the State Department, the DOJ, the Labor Department, HHS, and Homeland Security. And there is a lot at play here, so I'm gonna give you the highlights, starting with Homeland Security, right? Because they've moved tons of agents who are formerly dedicated to investigating and arresting human traffickers to focusing on deporting immigrants. And that move came in response to Trump's executive order back in January, changing the primary mission of the department's investigations unit from pursuing crimes of international nexus to investigating illegal entry and addressing the unlawful presence of aliens in the US. And among other things, according to the dozen current and former DHS agents, analysts, and officials interviewed by The Guardian, the change in directive caused morale to tank for a lot of agents. Or you saw things like one former investigations official retiring last year as the chief of the Integrity Investigations Division at ICE saying, "We were hired to stop major crimes. These are cases where there are real victims, child sexual exploitation and human trafficking victims." And then to now have to go out and basically comb the streets and look for folks through immigration raids, it's a bad use of resources. And another retired investigations official added that moving agents away from investigating it makes it, quote, easier for exploiters and traffickers to get away with their crimes, and saying it's impunity for traffickers. But also in other cases, there were workers just getting axed rather than being shifted. You had things like the State Department's tip office, which is meant to monitor and combat human trafficking, seeing a cut of more than 70% of their workforce. Cuts that had Representative Sarah McBride of Delaware pushing for explanations from Deputy Secretary of State Michael Regas. Right, but Mike, he defended the cuts, saying, oh, those were just redundancies in staffing, and that most of the people fired were actually just writing reports, right? They weren't out in the field. So to that, you had McBride responding.
It boggles the mind and defies belief that 71% of this department was so dispensable amidst a global crisis of human trafficking.
Right, but also the mention of reports, it's very important because we've not seen the release of the annual Trafficking in Persons report, which seems very questionable. This is the report that's meant to chart trends in human trafficking in the US and around the world and provide an assessment of each country's work to combat human trafficking. It's even mandated by federal law to be presented to Congress by June 30th, and I don't know if you've noticed, past June 30th. And the release event for the report, it got canceled and was never rescheduled. And that, despite the fact that multiple sources have confirmed that the report is complete. All while in the 14 years that this report has been produced, it's never been delayed beyond July. And this report, it's incredibly important for a number of reasons, including this is the metric by which countries are graded for receiving many forms of foreign aid. Right, if your country gets poor marks on this report, you're likely not getting much, if any, cash from the United States. And then on top of that, Team Trump's reportedly held up grants for nonprofits fighting human trafficking around the world. Right, the State Department has historically awarded approximately $80 million a year to support research, training, and victim services. But some of those grants, they've been withdrawn, and the department hasn't issued a new call for anti-trafficking grant opportunities since January. Right, meaning you've got organizations coming down to the last of their dollars from the last grant cycle, and so they're having to make changes, pause training, or just limit services to victims. And so you've got groups like Preble Street, a nonprofit in Maine that relies on federal grants to support services for workers trafficked into massage parlors, teenage runaways, and victims of forced labor, and its director of anti-trafficking services saying, we're planning for the worst case scenario. And we're still answering the phone, but we're trying to do our best. But we also believe in transparency, so we're letting people know services may look different. And another researcher saying, you are taking away critical resources that protect survivors of trafficking in vulnerable communities across the world. Right? And with this, you had the Guardian reaching the Trump administration for a response to the findings that they're laying out here. And in fact, they sent a list of 23 questions and that a Trump spokesperson answered none of them. Instead, you had the Guardian saying they received a 3-sentence response calling their findings total nonsense and accusing the Biden administration of, quote, coddling and apologizing for criminals and sexual predators. And then adding that Trump has totally secured our border to stop the trafficking of children and implemented tough on crime policies that go after human traffickers and hold these disgusting monsters accountable to the fullest extent of the law. Right, and that it lines up with what Team Trump has said in public statements regarding human trafficking, pointing to its immigration enforcement strategy as its way of fighting the problem and saying that their method has led to the removal of criminal illegals, including gang-related traffickers. And you also have Team Trump pointing to its work protecting minors who have migrated without their parents, though while they make that defense, it's also worth noting that they cut funding for legal services that help protect unaccompanied migrant children, 25,000 plus kids in limbo. And that cut, it reportedly led to kids as young as 5 years old showing up in immigration court without an attorney, and you had anti-trafficking advocates saying if it was about trafficking and kids, they would not be sending kids to court by themselves by cutting off funding for legal representation. Right? And with all this, it's important to know that Team Trump's, they're backpedaling on decades of bipartisan work in the government for the fight against human trafficking here. And it's something that's shocked many because during Trump's first term, he was actually applauded by advocates across the political spectrum for his administration's work on these issues. But also, you're seeing some chalking this change of heart up to the ripple effects of the Epstein scandal. Because we all know how much criticism that Trump's gotten about that from both Democrats and his own base, but according to Representative Jamie Raskin, the ranking member on the House Judiciary Committee, Epstein is just part of the calculation. You've got this memo that he and his staff shared with The Guardian accusing the Trump administration of systematically dismantling efforts to prosecute sex crimes and hunt down traffickers and saying, President Trump in office has repeatedly taken the side of criminal sex predators and violent abusers against their victims, and this pattern goes well beyond his strenuous efforts to bury the Epstein files. But then Raskin from there going on to point out several key Trump policies that he believes have helped criminals and traffickers. Right? Things including the dismantling of USAID, moving agents from criminal cases to immigration enforcement, and canceling grants to local law enforcement and nonprofits helping victims of human trafficking, and then adding, these findings reveal the Trump administration's structural bias in favor of human traffickers, rapists, and sexual violators and against their victims, survivors, and opponents. The question of why this alignment exists cannot be answered in this memo, but the pattern is unmistakable. But ultimately, that is where we are, and the true impact of this, we might not fully understand or comprehend it for one to who knows how many years from now. But of course, in the meantime, I'd love to know your thoughts, opinions, and reactions here. And with that, it brings us to the end of this video. You've got even more just a click away. You can watch or listen to my newest podcast here with Governor Wes Moore. It's actually one of our shorter ones, but it's a great one. Or you can watch the newest Philip DeFranco show that you haven't seen yet. I've even got links for both of those if you want to watch or listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. But hey, also, no matter what you do, thank you for watching. I love yo faces, and I'll see you right back here for more tomorrow.
Can't believe that didn't go over.
Piers, I think that's completely disingenuous. And I think anyone watching that.
What are you talking about?
And so if you will let me, if you will allow me, please.
What
please
are you
stop
talking
interrupting me,
about?
Okay, did you invite me here to interrupt me, or are you going to let me?
I think you're
answer
being
the
a
question?
complete dick, if I'm honest with you.
Okay.
I do.
Well, that's very kind and respectful of you.
It wasn't intended to be kind or
I don't like the ad
respectful.
hominem attacks.
The assassination of Charlie Kirk has sparked a bitter and reductive blame game between right and left, turbocharged by inflammatory calls for vengeance on the fringes of one side and callous celebrations on the other. Neither side wants to find common cause. Both hold the other side accountable for the febrile climate that led to Kirk's appalling murder. Viral clips appear to show people on either side doing anything other than taking the temperature down. Stephen Crowder's call for violence is one such example, for which he's now issued this clarification.
People may take some clips and tell you that Stephen Crowder is irresponsible, he advocated violence. That's right. I am. I want to be crystal clear about that. I am advocating for lawful violence defensively that has been abandoned for years, and I want it to replace where grace was afforded before.
In a moment, we'll be joined by Joe Walsh to debate these issues, but first I'm joined by Stephen Crowder for what will hopefully be a clarification.
Is that the fucking
on his
guitar
clarification.
player?
Stephen, welcome back to Uncensored. As you know, a lot of people believed you were advocating for a violent response. You've clarified that now. And people are saying, you know, is that a sincere clarification, or have you just calmed down? In a moment, we'll be
on it too late. I advocated violence.
In a moment, we'll be joined by Joe Walsh to debate these issues.
Gotcha, Illinois politician.
First, I'm joined by Stephen Crowder for what will hopefully be a clarification on his clarification. Stephen, welcome back to Uncensored. As you know, a lot of people believed you were advocating for a violent response. You've clarified that now. And people are saying, you know, is that a sincere clarification, or have you just calmed down?
It wasn't a clarification. It was a repeat. And I stand by it. I am advocating for lawful, maybe let me clarify, ruthless violence in defense of us and our own. If you give me 1.5 minutes, I can make it extra crystal clear if we need to. What you're seeing with Charlie Kirk is what got through. Charlie Kirk lived under a cloud just as I have. It's the reason that I stopped doing Change My Minds, where there were 12 felonious assaults, attempts at battery, and attempts on my life, and I know quite a few, and many I don't, of Charlie Kirk. I want to be clear. I want those on the left to speak freely and to be able to host their events with minimal security as they do now for the rest of their lives. Just as surely, I want them to be deathly terrified of showing up and acting with the increasing violence as they have at our events. And that goes both ways. Hey, if there's a spat of right-wing violence that's spreading across this country, treat those people the same way that we treat yours. But you won't find it. And let me just address a couple of things here. What I think leads to violence, they'll try and blame it on Donald Trump. They'll give us a bunch of reasons. Let me be really clear here. Joe Walsh will say that this is an overreaction. He said that yesterday. He doesn't understand why this is a big deal. That's untrue. He will say that statistically more violence comes from the right. That's provably untrue. He has been stating for days that the shooter was in fact not a leftist and we didn't know. That's provably untrue. He will create a false equivalency between Charlie Kirk and the murder of the Hortmans in Minnesota. That's provably untrue. And finally, he will place blame, as the left and the spineless right does, for all of this on Donald Trump, conservatives, rising figures, and the rhetoric for temperatures in this country. That is provably untrue. Donald Trump ran on Law and Order and won because of leftist violence. All of this, let me finish with this. All of this is by design so that the left and spineless right can make this conversation about conservatives responding to the cold-blooded terroristic assassination and gleeful celebration thereafter of a young man who did nothing more than sit down at a table and allow anyone to speak their opinion. And I know what it's like because I was in that spot. I started it, and Charlie cited it as inspiration. If I could change one thing, and I do believe that I'm partially responsible for this, I failed people. I've had to do a lot of soul searching. When I did Change My Mind and started in 2016, the idea was, hey, calling the left on their bluff, civil dialogue with anyone to the tune of billions of plays and hundreds of hours. And it got increasingly violent. And what I didn't tell people, I told people out there, go do this on your own campus, have these conversations. I advocated for it. And Charlie took it to another level. He was unbelievable at it. What I didn't do, I didn't tell people about the threats because I didn't want copycats. I didn't tell them about terrorists from Yemen through Sweden showing up in East Grand Rapids. I didn't tell them about concrete milkshakes. I didn't tell them about my tires getting slashed, about people trying to firebomb my car. And maybe if I would have picked up the phone, maybe if I would have used this megaphone to tell people it's real life out there and the left wants you dead, maybe Charlie would have had a fighting chance. Maybe I could have done more. Right now, I'll tell you this. I see a lot of people out there, Piers. See a lot of people out there talking about picking up that microphone. And I hope people do, because the alternative is silence. But I want people to know that wherever that microphone is, and whoever thinks about picking it up, you are in the crosshairs. People say bring down the temperature. Okay, how about we bring down the temperature to doing something like, I don't know, sitting down at a table and allowing anyone with a thought or opinion to discuss it rationally? Would that bring down the temperature?
Your AI is only as smart as your prompt. And this makes every prompt 10 times smarter. This is all thanks to this prompt enhance button in augment code with...
Because they took his life anyway.
Listen, I know you knew Charlie Kirk well. I feel your passion, I feel your anger, I feel your hurt. it's a painful time. I think everybody on the conservative right in America, it's a very painful time. And I feel that. But in the interest of fair play, which Charlie Kirk would want, we have got the former Republican congressman and the host of The Social Contract, Joe Walsh, joining the debate. Exactly what Charlie would encourage, I think, which is, Joe, you've just heard a very impassioned statement there from Steven Crowder. What's your response?
CC.
Oh, I get it, and I feel it, and I appreciate Steven Crowder expressing how he feels. I really do, and I don't know what my fight is. I don't have a fight with Steven Crowder. Steven, good to see you. There was a lot you said about me there in the intro. I don't remember, because I'm getting older. I wish I'd written down some of it. I did my best for the past week, because I knew Charlie as well, not to say that this guy was a right wing. He came from a God-fearing gun Utah family. He was definitely right, like some on the left did. I didn't know who he was until we had the facts and the evidence. And it's clear, Pierce and Stephen, that this was a...
I had the facts and the evidence, and I told you he was on the left from the bullet engravings that we received from a leak, and you said we were wrong, and people on the left said we were wrong, and that matters because the shooter was still out there, and so was the Kirk family. I'm trying to save lives.
Stephen,
you just save lives, Joe?
Maybe some people did. I don't know when I ever said you were wrong anywhere. When
you
this
said
first time I've talked to you, or even
we don't know. We know he's from a white family in Utah, and you retweeted people, and you went out and said this guy is not a left-wing extremist. He is. Okay, go ahead. You did say that,
my friend. From the moment Charlie Kirk was assassinated, I said we don't know who did it, and once we found out who did it, we don't know why he did it. So let's all wait to figure out why he did it.
But we did
yesterday,
Stephen. And I remember you saying that he sold his soul to Trump before the body was cold, and criticizing his life.
Stephen, let me finish, brother, please. And then we find out in no uncertain terms, by the way, Pierce, which I think all of us could have guessed, this was a political assassination. This 22-year-old young man hated Charlie Kirk, and so he picked up that gun and he shot him. Clearly, and as you've said, Pierce, it's clear that of late he had become radicalized with leftist ideology. There, now we know it. This will go down in history as an act of left-wing political violence. Yes.
I mean, I would say, Stephen, that is an honest statement there from Joe. But,
it's not.
Yeah, but is it honest on your side, Stephen? Be honest. Is it honest to say there is no problem with violence on the political right? Because there has been historically a lot of violence associated with the far right in America. That again is just a demonstrable fact. To pretend there's never been any is to be disingenuous.
Demonstrable fact by what? No, it's not to be disingenuous. It's absolutely correct. And I understand, because I've seen Joe and people of his ilk retweeting these out there. It either comes from Cato Institute or it comes from a recent Economist article. I can tell you how all of those numbers are wrong. Remember the man in Portland? Remember Aaron Danielson, who was shot dead point blank by an Antifa member? Michael Reinhold, who said, we got a Trump supporter, bang, bang, dead. That wasn't listed as political violence. Look at that chart. The year 2020, the summer of love, no political violence from the left. I could go through the methodology, and I have, and I have brilliant researchers who have. It is demonstrably untrue. No one is saying there is no violence on the right. What I am saying is that people on the right have to have armed security, flak jackets, an entire strategy when they go out, and those on the left don't. That is verifiably true. What is dishonest is to say we didn't know. You know what else wouldn't have been included in these crime stats? And anyone want to make this argument? You're talking to the wrong guy. The Covenant High School shooting. Audrey Hale. Cato said we included it because it was borderline, even though the police said they didn't think it was politically motivated. If not for the undercover journalism unit of a comedy show right here, no one would have known that motivation. We found it, we leaked it, we processed it, we verified it, and we were met with resistance and threats of lawsuits from the local police department, the mayor, and the FBI. They said it was a lie on the outset, just like they said the engravings on the bullet casings were a lie on the outset. The left lies. They label you fascist. They label you a totalitarian. And how do you deal with those people? Well, you don't do it at the ballot box. We all know that.
It's not just how the news is told, but what's left out, which concerns me. And when a friend in the business recommended I try Ground News, I gave it a go. But honestly, I was impressed. It does something brilliant, which most news platforms are afraid to do. It's an app and a website that lines up coverage of the same story from across the spectrum, left, right, international, and lays it all out side by side. That kind of transparency is increasingly rare and is vital. Ground News helps you to dig in and find the facts by showing you who owns each outlet, what their bias is, and which stories are being buried. It has an especially revealing blind spot feed, which services stories being reported almost exclusively by only one side of the political divide. I want to hear every side before making up my mind. Ground News makes that possible and easy. It's independent, funded by subscribers and not corporate interests, just like my show. And it's a tool that puts the power back in your hands. Go to groundnews.com/peers to claim your 40% discount to the unlimited access Vantage plan and see what everyone else is missing. That's groundnews.com/peers.
Every position that the right holds has been presented as violence, including silence, by the way. I know there's a poster behind Joe Walsh right next to his No Kings poster. In other words, if you're pro-life, it's violence against women. If you're against men and women's sports, it's violence against trans, it's genocide, it's erasing them. If you're against Juneteenth as a holiday, it's violence. You're pro-First Amendment, violence because you're inciting violence. You're pro-Second Amendment, violence because you believe people should be able to commit gun violence. And then if we remain silent, that's also violence. And so people deal with the right with violence. Here's my challenge. Find me one example of a Charlie Kirk on the left, not an elected official. I'll allow any speaker, any comedian, this century, one example of somebody who was murdered, assassinated, hemorrhaged out in front of his family in cold blood and gleefully celebrated thereafter. And the polls show that a majority, according to YouGov recently, of Democrats think it's somewhat too acceptable. 38%, 77% of Republicans said not acceptable at all.
Okay, let Joe
What I'm
respond.
saying is that Charlie Kirk was hunted. He was hunted. We are being hunted, and I don't want to see any more dead friends. Violence, absolutely. Lawful, ruthless, defensive violence.
Okay, Joe.
Pierce, I'll just be brief again. The data is pretty clear, and historically it's been pretty clear that there's political violence on the right and the left in this country for years. And I could argue, and I would argue, but I won't here, that there's historically been more political violence coming from the right. But suffice to say, I think you and I, Pierce, would agree, there's a history of... Hey, Stephen, let me finish, man, please.
Please argue it. You can't just make a vague claim and not substantiate it.
Pierce, you and I would agree, for the sake of this conversation, that political violence is in fact a both sides problem. Stephen, you would acknowledge, I think, that there is political violence on, and there has been political violence on the right as well. So why don't we all just condemn it all? That's what we all should do.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't agree with the premise. And I'm having to agree with a nebulous premise because you presented no facts. The very source that you cite, and by the way, I'll make all of mine publicly available. Hold on, I'm finishing now. Let's do it like grown-ups. You can cite your sources online. George Floyd riots, not included. Darrell Brooks, Waukesha, not included. Antifa, not included. Man shot dead for voting Trump, not included. Those numbers are not to be trusted, and neither is someone parroting it. I'll answer your question if you answer one of mine after. Go ahead, please.
Streak CRM for Gmail. All the standard CRM features, plus some inbox-powered magic.
Back to school, back to savings at Tomahawk Buick and Chrysler.
Drive the all-new Buick Envista for just $24,695 or finance as low as 0.9%.
Save up to $10,250 on a powerful new GMC Sierra or get 0% financing.
At Tomahawk Chrysler, up to $15,341 off new vehicles like this Charger.
Or lease a new Ram for just $449 a month.
Plus, only Tomahawk gives you a free lifetime warranty.
Come to Tomahawk Buick and Chrysler for a deal so good it'll knock your socks off.
Melissa Hortman, the Democratic state legislator in Minnesota, 3 months ago, gunned down by an anti-abortion Trump supporter. Yes or no?
Wrong. How do I know? Because Vance Bolter, the man who did it, wrote in his letter that it had nothing to do with Trump or being pro-life. He blamed Tim Walz. And here's what you also don't see. Did you see anyone at the Hortman's funerals or vigils spitting on them or pantomiming being shot in the neck? Did you see anyone celebrating the death of them gleefully?
Yes.
Did you see so many professors
Yes.
doing so, showing children a snuff? Really? Point me to one.
Yes.
Point me to one person spitting at their vigil. Let me guess, you're going to go to Mike Lee?
Utah
How do I
Senator
predict
Mike
everything
Lee
you say all the time?
attack.
How?
Donald Trump.
He didn't mock the attack.
But
Yes, he did.
okay,
Donald Trump.
let me jump in. Let me jump in.
Spit at the
Stephen,
vigil.
let me jump
Anyone
in.
celebrate the
Stephen,
murder.
let me give you an example.
Pierce, I don't.
Hang on.
Go ahead, please.
Hang on. I would give an example where the right behaved very badly, and that was over the attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband. I saw the gleeful responses after that from the right, the memes, the mockery, and so on. I thought that was very distasteful. Would you agree, Stephen?
If you want to argue an equivalency between a man getting
I'm not
hit with a
asking
hammer in his
equivalency.
underwear
I'm not saying
and a
equivalent.
man bleeding out in front of his child,
I'm not
go
saying
ahead.
they're equivocal. I'm just saying it's an example where I felt people on the right showed a complete lack of humanity towards the man who'd been attacked because he happened to be married to Nancy Pelosi, a political opponent. And so it's not like this never. It's not like this has never happened.
I don't agree. I don't think it's even remotely proportional. Let me ask the question here. This is why I'm giving this message, and this is why I hope people listen and protect their own. Joe Walsh, you're there. Since I answered your question, you're there, Utah, in the crowd. It's not a mouser. It's not a 30-06. But it's a man winding up a milkshake for Charlie Kirk. We don't know if it's strawberry, chocolate, vanilla, acid, or concrete. Do you stop him? Do you hurt him? That hesitation tells me that you are not amongst us. And cowards are dangerous.
It's literally over the internet. He waited a quarter of a second.
Is
he fucking coked out or something? What the fuck?
Do you stop him? Do you hurt him? I don't understand your question. I'm sorry. I honestly, I don't.
Someone winding up a milkshake to launch at Charlie Kirk. You don't know if it's strawberry, chocolate, vanilla, acid, or concrete. You see him before anyone else does. Do you stop him and hurt him?
Yes. I certainly stop him. I do all I can to stop him, yes.
Good. There's a start. That's what I'm advocating. Every single person out there, because we have been living with this shadow over us. And I know, look, here's the thing too, Joe. I understand your rhetoric. I understand where you're coming from. And I know that you met Charlie when he was 16, as I understand it, right? He was very, very young. And I understand that maybe you were somewhat of a mentor figure. It's because of the failure of Republicans like you that me and Charlie Kirk exist, who are willing to take back the territory that has been conceded, and we are willing to pay with our lives. We shouldn't have to be. Academia, media, the press, big tech shouldn't be dominated by the left exclusively all the time. Charlie Kirk shouldn't be out there
Or maybe it's just that when you get more educated, you get less
He
stupid.
shouldn't be inspired by people
That
like
could be a
me
possibility.
who are comedians. He
We'll
should have
never
been
know.
inspired by people like you. Instead, he was inspired to go the other way. Maybe that's why he said he sold his soul for Donald Trump before the body was cold. Still want to do the no true Scotsman holier than thou thing?
And Stephen, I'm assuming you would do the same, correct? If somebody were throwing a chocolate milkshake at a left-wing speaker, correct?
No, the reason I bring it up is because we didn't. We didn't,
But
and I've had
would
them
you?
launched at me.
Would you, Stephen?
And the reason...
Would you?
No, I didn't. I didn't,
Would you?
and now I would. Now
Would
I would.
you?
Because now I would. Yes. Have I answered your question? Yes, now I would, and I advocate that everybody else do the same by any means necessary.
Stephen, common ground. You and I, two Americans, would both stop any politically violent attack on any public figure or speaker that we saw. You and I agree to that. And you and I hope, would both agree that we should condemn all political violence. End of story.
I am condemning, of course, all political violence. It is coming from one side, and the prescription is ruthless, aggressive, defensive, lawful violence on anyone who tries. If someone behaves in a way, for example, I've been sucker punched, I've been collar dragged, I've had attempts on my life, I have been doxxed. If anyone behaves in a way where if they behave that way at a town hall, at a restaurant, you with your family, would result in their severe ass beating, they deserve it at a political rally. They deserve it at a private function and a public speaking engagement. And the right has not been doing that because we've been taking the high road and the left has acted with impunity. That's why you see professors. It's not just that they're showing children a snuff film on repeat in order to create a generation of psychopaths, by the way. That's how you do it. It's that so many professors are doing it because they don't fear any ramifications. You can't find that on the right. Find me one example of a Charlie Kirk, not an elected official, a person who did nothing more than express his opinion and allow anyone else to do the same, who lost his life.
I also think in relation to that I saw Charlie Kirk's producer today getting quite emotional as he talked about the difference, for example, between the reaction to the murder of George Floyd, which I thought was despicable, and the murder of Charlie Kirk, which was despicable, is that one precipitated nationwide rioting and lawlessness as people were so enraged they took to the streets, and the other took to people going to church. You know,
also call me when Charlie Kirk died with a speedball. He mugged a woman with his toddler in the house.
I thought it was an interesting.
George Floyd hurt people.
I thought it was an interesting observation, Joe, in terms of the difference.
And I appreciate that, Pierce. Let me sneak in one more thing before Stephen goes off. Also, the assassination of Democratic Melissa Hortman in Minnesota by an anti-abortion Trump supporter, you didn't see violence after that. And the other thing you did not see after a, let me finish, Stephen, let me finish, brother.
The man who blamed Tim Walz. Truth matters. Dishonesty foments violence, Joe.
After a Democrat was assassinated in Minnesota, you also did not see the Democratic Party and the left declaring a war on the right, saying that they did it, the evildoers did it. This is a battle between good and evil. You didn't hear any of that when a Democrat was assassinated. We should condemn both, Pierce. Condemn anybody celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder. Condemn it. And we should also condemn anyone using Charlie Kirk's murder to call for declare some war on half of the country, and this is a battle between good and evil. Both of those reactions are dangerous and despicable.
Final word to Stephen. Stephen, final word to you.
Stephen, you got the final word.
Yeah, wrong. I think using Charlie Kirk is saying that he sold his soul to Trump before the body's even cold. I agree with Charlie Kirk's reaction to George Floyd because the media lied. Lies foment dishonesty. And I'm not calling for a civil war. I made it very clear I want the left to be able to continue to speak without security, as they often do. I just want them to be deathly afraid to try what they've been doing with the right for a very long, forevermore going forward. But if we talk about this, hey, there's one time that there weren't riots. Yeah, what about all the times that there were and they weren't registered as violent crime? Charlie Kirk didn't hurt anybody. George Floyd did. Charlie Kirk is very, very different from George Floyd. Dishonesty is what foments, I'll leave you with this, is what foments violence. And you know what? When you say war of good and evil, show me one time where the people who are actually evil are willing to paint a war of good and evil. Because you know what? If it ever comes to that, God forbid, maybe the people advocating for abortion up until and including birth and genital mutilation for children, including hiding them from their parents in the state of Minnesota, maybe they could look around at themselves and say, hey, if this is a war of good and evil, maybe we're the bad guys.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you both so very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
If you're stressed about back taxes, miss the April deadline, or your books are a mess, well, don't wait. The IRS is cracking down. Penalties add up fast, 5% per month, and up to 25% for not filing. Tax Network USA can help. They've assisted thousands of Americans, from employees to business owners and people who haven't filed for years. They have direct access to powerful IRS programs and expert negotiators on your side. Tax Network USA knows how to win. You'll get a free consultation, and they may even be able to reduce or eliminate what you owe. So don't wait for the next IRS letter. Call 800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/peers. That's tnusa.com/peers for expert help on your taxes. But Charlie Kirk used new media to devastating effect in his mission to mobilize young people for his conservative movement. He understood the power of a viral moment to cut through a complex argument and the great appetite for proper debate. Just two of many things we all love about our digital culture. There's plenty of things many of us find repellent about it too. Witch hunts, vile smears we not dream of using in real life, and the business of saying things purely to generate attention through rage. Many prominent figures on the right have accused Don Lemon of doing exactly that this week, ironically, for making the very same claim about them.
The thing that is so obvious about it, and I think is so disgusting, is that you don't really care. You don't really care about Charlie Kirk. What you care is that this is a moment that you can use for clicks, to boost your podcast or your streaming show or your radio show or your television show or your news show or your MAGA bona fides with the MAGA group or your political stripes, that you can improve it. You can have a moment where you're crying in front of the cameras. You gather all the reporters at the Capitol and you go, and it's your fault, and it's your fault, and it's the left, and whatever.
Well, Don Lemon is, of course, a former CNN anchor like me, who now hosts the Don Lemon Show, to which appear frequently in many popular podcasts. And he joins me now. Don, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you? Good to see you, Peter.
We were both...
Introduction, but it's great to see you.
We were both greatly lamented ex-CNN anchors. In fact, we shared an office. You took my old office, so I feel like we've got a lot in history together. Your reaction to Charlie Kirk's murder has stirred up a lot of anger on people on the right, particularly the clip we just heard where you talk about them not really caring about what happened to him and just reacting to clicks, crying for clicks and so on. I've interviewed quite a few people who are on the conservative right who knew Charlie Kirk well. I've not detected any of that myself. I do think that they were genuinely, utterly horrified by what happened. Do you not think that what you said there was insensitive?
No, I don't. I'm surprised because I was actually taking up for Charlie Kirk. I was taking up for him as someone who died a horrible, untimely death, and that there are people who are out here trying to capitalize off of his death. I don't think it's that much different than what his friend, who is his confirmed friend, Candace Owens, is saying about folks who are using it for political and for career expediency. There are those who are doing it, and there are those who are not. And if you are not, then I don't think anyone who's not doing it took any offense to it. There's an old saying here in America, a hit dog will holler. So the folks who I felt a certain kind of way and that I touched with that statement or those statements, then perhaps they should take a look at themselves. And by the way, as you know, peers, you've been a victim of this. Many of us have been a victim to this. You take a clip, you do a short clip that is out of context, and then you make it into something that you want it to be rather than what I said. I don't see many people on the right at all of me running clips of me saying, I think, it was horrible what happened to Charlie Kirk. It should never have happened. I feel terrible for his wife and his kids. The kids are fatherless. She does not have a husband right now. I don't believe in political violence at all, whether it comes from the right or the left. No one played those clips. What they did was take someone like me that they can demonize. They feel that I'm on the left. As you know, peers, we work together. I'm not on the left. I am not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm not on the right either. I have my own mind, and I make up my mind, and I decide on issues based on what I believe in and based on facts, not a certain political ideology.
Well, look, I would say that you're clearly a lot more left than right, surely. I've never heard you espouse a conservative sentiment.
I am a lot more fact-based than I am anything. And so I don't believe you are free to think that I'm on the left. And perhaps in this time that we're in now with the Trump administration and with MAGA, perhaps facts are on the left. And if you deem that being on the left, then so be it. I don't see myself as being a political figure or a figure who's on the left.
It's interesting. It's interesting your characterization about facts, because I would argue that one of the reasons Trump got re-elected against all the odds, if you think about what happened after January 6th and everything else, the fact that he got re-elected, I always felt was three-pronged, right? One was immigration. I think Biden completely dropped the ball with immigration, particularly on the southern border. Second, the economy. And thirdly, the whole woke issue, the whole woke culture. And in particular, I would say, the issue, for example, of trans athletes in women's sport, which is, to me, if you're talking about facts, it is something that most Americans looked at and went, you know what, this is ridiculous. How can you deny biological reality? How can you go against scientific fact? So many would argue that it was the Democrats who lost track of facts and moved into a slightly strange, surreal place where they were trying to deny stuff which most Americans went, well, that's ridiculous.
Look, I would not qualify it the way that you're qualifying it. I do believe that you have a point about the Democratic Party not understanding the moment that we're in, that America's in right now. As far as trans athletes, I think that was, although I understand to certain people it is a big deal, it is such a minute small percentage of the population, and the trans athletes that are actually in schools and that are competing in competitions. It's so minor. It affects so few Americans. I'm shocked that it was used to the level that it was in the election, and to great success. And so I must commend the Republicans on an issue that wasn't really an issue for most Americans, that they made it into something that helped to catapult this president into office. Now,
but you see, I've heard a lot of Democrats using that argument, and I've said to them, one of the most effective. I'm not saying you're a Democrat. I'm just saying I've heard a lot of Democrats say it, and my argument to them has been, yeah, but I don't. The New York Times reported that the They Them ad that Trump put out, which gathered momentum and then became used more and more and more, was one of the most effective.
I think it was extremely successful.
It was one of the most successful
I agree.
modern political adverts, because it cut to the point, I think, again, about common sense, that most Americans actually, maybe they don't have it in their top 5 things they care about. I would absolutely accept that. But when you actually ask them, do you think this is fair? Do you think it's right? Do you think it's equal? Do you think it's good that women's rights would be eroded? They actually then do get quite exercised about it. Hello and welcome. We begin with some breaking news. Woke is dead. The war on common sense. Virtually Spain and Lee win. With Domino, you will be shocked by how much you agree with me.
Feeling overwhelmed by social pressures and stressed by packed schedules at school? At VPrep, we offer an online school that specializes in you. Our online school provides personalized learning tailored to your unique needs. We empower students to achieve success in a safe, happy environment, reigniting the love of learning. Rediscover the joy of education with VPrep, a tuition-free kindergarten through high school. Visit us at in.vprep.com.
Look, Piers, I'm not here to argue over trans rights. I don't think it necessarily cut to the argument of common sense. I think they simply found an issue that they could capitalize on based on fear or some perceived religious value or what have you. So I'm not going to sit here and demonize trans people, trans women, or trans men, because I just don't think that is fair and that is productive in this moment. I'm not going to go back and litigate why Donald Trump won and on the issue of trans. We simply disagree on that. I think it affects so few people. I think it was something that was blown out of proportion, and while there may be some people who are affected by it, and if they are, I'm sorry that happens, but happens. But I just don't think that was an issue that focuses.
So when
on
you see, for
sense.
example, in the Paris Olympics, when you saw Imam Khalif, an Algerian boxer who had been banned from the World Championships for testing positive for male chromosomes, when you saw a young female Italian boxer quit after 40 seconds because she'd never been hit that hard and genuinely feared for her life, and Imam Khalif goes on to win gold medal at the Olympics, does that not ring an alarm bell for you, Don? I mean, do you not think that the reason we separate sexes in the Olympics is because males have an advantage? I mean, why would you not think that's important?
Do you want me to tell you the truth? Let me tell you, Piers, I'll tell you the truth about this. I heard about this story, but it's not something that I focus on. I'm not watching the Olympics like that. Maybe I'm different. I'm just not. I'm not that interested in watching everything. I like to watch the swimming. I like to watch the gymnastics. I'm not interested in boxing or any of that because I think it's a brutal sport anyway. So for me, it's just not that interesting. I'm sorry that anybody was hit that hard, but if you put yourself in the arena to be hit and someone hits you hard, then whose fault is that?
Well, you expect to be hit by other women, not men.
Well, I don't know that. I don't know.
Well,
when
men hit women, we call it.
I'm sure she saw. I'm sure whoever was in that competition understood who they were going into the ring with. And if you put yourself in that competition in the middle of a ring where punches are being thrown, then you can expect to get hit hard, whether it is a man or a woman. And that's all I have to say about it.
So you would have no objection to men fighting women in a boxing ring?
I did not say that. I just said that's all I have to say about that.
But isn't that the implication of what you're saying?
No, I've said in many different ways That's all I have to say about that.
Right. I'm just trying to clarify what you just said about the boxing. Are you saying it's okay for men to beat up women?
I think I've been very clear. That's all I have to say. I think I've been very clear to you. That's all I have to say.
Well, you
about
have.
it.
I'm just
If
a bit
you
startled
don't
by
play the
what
tape back if you don't understand.
No, I'm just startled by what I think I just heard, which is you seem to think it's okay for men to hit women in a boxing ring. Is that what you said? Clarify if you didn't.
I didn't say. I don't think it's okay for men to hit women anywhere.
So why would it be okay in a boxing ring?
Well, again, I didn't say it's okay in a boxing ring. I just said that's all I have to say about it. I don't think it's okay for men to hit women.
So
anywhere.
then it sounds like you agree with me that biological men should not be competing against women in a boxing ring.
Piers, no matter how hard you can try to, I told you, that's it.
It's not a gotcha question.
I'm not agreeing with you.
It's not a gotcha question.
I'm not saying it's a gotcha question. I'm just saying that I am done with this particular conversation. I don't think that it is productive. I've said what I said, and I'm not changing it. I don't agree with you. That's it.
But if you were doing your old show at CNN, you would have listened to your own response and gone, what exactly did he mean by that?
I probably would have said, okay, that's what you said, and then I would move on.
Okay, we'll move on. You've criticised the MAGA right for turning Charlie Kirk into a martyr. You said if a black man on the left went around saying what Kirk said, the right wouldn't consider him a hero. It's an interesting point. Let's take a listen.
White women do not have brain processing power and are stealing jobs from black men. The right would fucking lose their mind. Mark Lamont Hill. Brolin. Michael Eric Dice. Let's say these brothers, or Bakari Sellers, or someone like that. If they went around saying some shit like that, they would be canceled immediately. They would be fired. People would scrub them from their whatever business that they work for. Or if they said, when I get on a plane and I see a white pilot, I'm like, damn, we're going to, I'm worried.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've seen that blow up a lot in the last few days. So I went back and actually watched exactly what Charlie
Where are you
said.
watching all this? I haven't seen any of this blow up that you're talking about.
Oh, yeah, it's been everywhere. Everyone's been showing clips of Charlie Kirk all week on social media.
I have not seen it. I guess maybe I'm just not on social media.
I mean, what's interesting is when you watch it all in context, it's a discussion that is prompted by the fact that Joy Reid, who you know well, had admitted she only got into Harvard because of DEI. So he said it all in the context of her revealing that, and which I think changes the impact of what he was saying. He wasn't just coming out with this. He was saying, there's Joy Reid admitting that she only got into Harvard because of DEI.
Oh my gosh.
What's your question?
So my question is, you've cited that example
Killer
of him
cooked
just
hard.
unilaterally saying black women don't have the brain processing power and so on. But when you actually watch the whole clip in context, that's not what he said.
You're making my point about the clip before, and which is the same point about the clip now that you played of me, where the context is explained, which is he was talking about not only Joy Reid, Sheila Jackson Lee, and Ketanji Brown Jackson. And it wasn't DEI that they were referring to. They were having discussions about affirmative action and about qualified people, qualified women of color who were offered opportunities or given opportunities that they may not have been given if it were not for affirmative action. Nothing to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so what he said, and I watched the clip, he said that what they were admitting to is that they were somehow a DEI hire and so on, and about brain processing power. I would suggest that you go back and listen to the clip that clip in context of what he was saying. He clearly said what he said, and I guess because of political ideology or because of bias, people are trying to interpret it and make it into something else. That is not what he said. Okay, he was very clear about the brain processing or lack of brain processing power for black women, or for those black women.
With Charlie Kirk's death, a lot of people on the left have come out gleefully celebrating what happened. A lot of people have been posting stuff on social media, very happy. And they've turned out to be teachers, professors, you know, doctors, nurses, I mean, people in extraordinary positions of power over other human beings. What should happen to those people?
Well, I think we should look at every circumstances. It should be taken on the circumstances should be taken on their own merit, and what should happen to them should be taken, you know, on individual merit. We should look at each of them. Now, I don't believe that anyone should be celebrating anybody's death at all, ever. And I don't think anyone should be celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. We know, and you know, Piers, that freedom of speech does come with consequences, and there are limits. There are limitations to freedom of speech. And if you work for a private company, they have the right to fire you or discipline you for whatever it is that they want. If you break the rules, their codes of conduct, then you have to suffer the circumstances. So, look, I 100% unequivocally believe that no one should be celebrating anything, and if any of those people broke the rules of their employer, their codes of conduct, then they should be disciplined or fired if it warrants it.
Do you agree?
But I don't believe in canceling people.
Right.
I think there's a lot of cancellation going on the right now, and I'm not comfortable with it.
Do you feel...
I wasn't comfortable with it on the left either.
Right. Do you feel you were a victim of cancel culture at CNN?
Probably. I don't think. I look at everything as an opportunity. Probably, yes. I'm sure that I was a victim of cancel culture, but I would say mostly on the right for cancel culture.
For those who don't know what I'm talking about, this is what led to you leaving CNN. Let's take a look at your play.
No, I need it this week. This week.
From cups to espresso machines, get everything you need without the stress. That's the Webstaurant way.
Back to school, back to savings at Tomo Hyundai.
Over 120 brand new Hyundais to choose from.
Save up to $4,750 on new Palisades or get 0% financing for 60 months.
Drive off in a brand new Elantra for just $21,999 or lease it for $299 down, $299 a month.
Don't miss 0% 60-month financing on the stylish new Santa Fe.
Plus, all new Hyundais come with a free lifetime warranty.
Come to Tomo Hyundai for deals so good it'll knock your socks off.
I literally can't auto, I can't move. This is so insane.
Not in their prime. Nikki Haley isn't in her prime. Sorry. When a woman is considered to be in her prime in her 20s and 30s and maybe 40s.
What do you
that's
call
not
wait?
That's not according to me.
Prime for what?
It depends. I mean, it's just like prime. If you look it up, it'll. If you Google when is a woman in her prime, it'll say 20s, 30s, and 40s. I don't necessarily.
40s. Oh, I got another.
I'm not saying
decade.
I agree with that. So I think she has to be careful about saying that.
When you watch that, Don, I happened to be watching that live, and I was like, "Whoa, what did you just say?" I mean, if you had a do-over, would you say that again? I mean, what led you to say that?
Okay, Piers, let me just say this. I'm going to answer your question, but just so the audience knows, and I hope you don't cut this out, when I asked you what subjects you wanted to talk about, you know what you said to me? You said, I want to talk to you about freedom of speech in America and the response to Charlie Kirk's death.
Yeah.
Not once did you mention that we were going to talk about CNN or whatever. So, and had I known that, I probably wouldn't have accepted this interview. You have invited me on many times, and I tell you, Piers, I know you. I would come on your show, but I don't do panels. And so when you said I'm not going to be involved in a panel, I agreed to come on your show. But I thought you would also stick by the subjects that you told me that you were going to talk about.
Just to be clear,
rather than try to ambush me with something.
Just to be clear,
so,
you and I
yes.
haven't. Well, Don, just to be clear, you and I haven't had any conversation about your appearance here. You're talking about my team talking to you.
Yeah, no, and I saw you, Piers, in a restaurant, and I said, hey, Piers, good to see you.
Yeah.
I would come on your show, but I don't do panels.
Right,
and I
you're
said
not
the
on a
same
panel.
thing to your bookers.
There's only one
and
of
so
you,
when
Don.
I asked you, and right, okay, and so, yes, and I said that's why I agreed to do it. But when you asked me, or when your team asked me what subjects, and I asked them 2 or 3 times, I have the text messages, what do you want to cover?
Yeah.
Not once was CNN mentioned. So I don't appreciate being ambushed, but let me answer your question since
Hang on
we're
one
here.
second. No, Don,
Okay?
Don, hang on one second. Let's just be crystal clear about what's just happened. You brought up the subject of cancel culture. I asked you, did you feel your departure from CNN was an example of that, and you answered the question. And I think it's perfectly reasonable.
And I answered the question.
Perfectly reasonable in that if you'd said to me, I don't want to talk about it, fine. No, but no, so sorry. You said what you're going to say. By the way, we don't. Don, we don't edit.
I don't like arguing like this. I'm not going to get into an argument with you. Piers, I think that's completely disingenuous. And I think anyone watching that.
What are you talking about?
And so if you will let me, if you will allow me, please.
What
please
are you
stop
talking about?
Me, okay? Did you invite me here to interrupt me, or are you going to let me?
I think you're being a complete dick, if I'm honest with you.
Okay.
I do.
Well, that's very kind and respectful of you.
It wasn't intended to be kind or respectful.
I don't like the ad hominem attacks. I could respond in kind.
You can say what you like about me. I don't care.
I think that I'm above that. I'm not going to do that, Piers. That's not who I am.
I don't understand why you're playing the victim card when you yourself mentioned cancel culture.
Because Piers. Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. Let me do this.
What are you going to do? Read out my team's messages to you?
Piers? It should be embarrassing. Yeah, I can read out the team messages to you because I just think it's completely unfair, and you know that. I'm prepared to answer your question, and then I'm going to move on. I told you I'm prepared to talk about Charlie Kirk's death, the response to it, and cancel culture, and freedom of the press. So freedom of speech.
You were prepared to talk about cancel culture, or you weren't?
Unless you... No. I'm not prepared
you're not prepared to talk about
cancel culture. But that has... Oh, my God. Piers, could you stop interrupting me?
Not really. You're kind of exhausting me. It's ridiculous. Why would you react this way to a perfectly normal... Obviously, if you mention cancel culture, obviously it's rational and logical that I would ask you whether you felt what happened to you at CNN was that. I play the clip, and then you throw a hissy fit.
I've given you a moment. Enough. I've given you your moment.
I don't want a moment.
It's going to go viral, so please,
I don't want a moment,
yes, you do. Otherwise, you wouldn't do this. Otherwise, you would be a respectful journalist and host, and you would let me talk.
I don't think I'll take lectures on being a respectful journalist
because you want a moment. Oh, my gosh, Piers.
I won't.
I can't even hear because there's a delay, and you keep talking. And what do you want me to do? Like rip the earpiece out in the mic and run off so you have a moment?
No, I don't care.
Are you
do whatever you like.
The question? Are you just going to keep pillaring me with questions?
I don't know why you've gone on this weird rant. I don't understand any of it. Why have you done this weird reaction? I simply asked you about whether you felt your departure from CNN was, in your eyes, an example of cancel culture. I played the clip,
Piers,
and I then said, when you watch it back, do you really understand what you were saying?
This is why I don't do this, but you're embarrassing yourself, Piers.
Actually, you might be embarrassing yourself, Don.
Oh, my God. Okay.
Yeah, you might be. Have you thought of that?
Okay.
You're a journalist. You don't want to talk about a story, a massive story that involved you?
Piers, can we move on? You can let me answer the question, and then we can talk about the things that you invited me on to talk about.
Why didn't you just answer the question to start with?
And we've gotten so far away from what you wanted me to answer that we're off into La La Land. So let me say something about that. The clip that you played had nothing to do with me leaving CNN, okay? And unless you know something that I don't know about me leaving CNN, then you should tell me about it. It had nothing to do. I worked there for months after that. So that had nothing to do with it. And so, and I forget the other thing that you were asking me about in that clip. But
I asked you when you watched the clip back, if you could explain what was going through your mind, that's all.
Thank you. I think the key phrases in that clip, if you want to be honest, and I want you to listen to it, is that I'm not saying that I believe that. That's not according to me. What I was speaking for there is how society treats women. And someone like Nikki Haley should know if women have been discriminated against for centuries, she should be more careful than to say something that discriminates against older people. That's it. And so people took that out of context. No one puts in whenever they write about it that I said, I'm not saying that. I don't believe that. I said that very clearly there. So that is not the reason that I was let go from CNN. And so, again, unless you know something, then, go ahead and tell me.
Well, as you know, it was widely reported that was. So what was the reason?
Don't believe everything you read.
What was the reason?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
But it all happened after that incident. You know that.
Yeah. Well, Piers, everything happens after something. I don't understand what your point is.
Well, my point is, I think it's quite newsworthy. If you say it had nothing to do with that, then it'll raise the obvious question.
I don't think it's newsworthy, Piers. That was 3 years ago. That's
Right.
3. It's not newsworthy. That news means something that's new. This isn't new.
Right.
That was 3 years ago. That's
Okay,
been
but it's
all
the first-
litigated.
it's
If
the
you want
first
to find
time
out about it, you are free to be able to read the interviews that I read. You are free to read the statement that perhaps your folks should pull up the statement when I left CNN, and that can explain to you what happened.
Press board, Kevin, come to the door with your hands up. Do it now.
You got a warrant for your arrest. Set the backpack down, or you're gonna get tased.
Our mission is violent fugitives.
That's really kind of one of our goals, is to make sure that we're shrinking their world smaller and smaller and smaller.
They're doing it already. Too late. Nope. Watch crossfire, watch crossfire. He's making his way back to the highway.
Suspect confirmed.
For 3 days, my team and I embedded with the U.S. Marshals Northern Ohio Violent Fugitive Task Force. Their job is to hunt down fugitives wanted for murder, armed robbery, domestic violence, and other serious crimes. In doing so, we witnessed raids that resulted in arrests and others that escalated into high-speed chases, foot pursuits, and full-blown manhunts. So join us today as we take you inside the hunt for some of Ohio's most dangerous outlaws. But first, folks, a quick word from the sponsor of today's episode.
First, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video, AnyDesk. It's basically a way to teleport into any computer at any time using remote access viewing. Picture this, you're on the phone with your grandma and she wants to listen, so you, boom, problem solved.
That's also how
So
most
there's a rough
scammers
race for
scam your
person
grandma.
Any day back, and they offer your life. Click the link in my pinned comments and get started on your journey.
I'm waking up to go bust fugitives with the U.S. Marshals. It's a dream come true. A lot of these guys are willing to run, willing to fight, and so these marshals get themselves into some dangerous territory. Let's head to the office. Let's get some outlaws.
Actors, we can make you believe we know what we're doing, when in fact, we do not. Whoops, I have no idea what these buttons do.
I've never driven a stick in my life. Let my hardest roll yet.
Small business owner, because I have no idea what I'm doing. But GoDaddy Arrow does, using AI to build a logo, website, and search.
Top of the morning to you. How are you? Good to meet you.
Josh.
I'm Tommy.
What's up, Tommy?
Thanks for having us, man. How are you?
Good, how you doing?
Doing good. What do we got cooking?
Handful of things brewing.
Hopefully none of these guys are on your list.
Nope.
All right, so we're just about to head out on the first mission of the morning. They're getting comms in order. They're prepping to get everything arranged. And it's kind of that calm for the storm. And you can tell that we're going to be in a nice fleet heading towards whoever the first suspect is. And I just got to say, so far, my money's on these guys. I'm just trying to picture the mindset of someone on the run. How are they moving? How are they operating? Like, it's not an easy life at all. Like, do you have a house to live at? Because they're probably getting hit immediately by law enforcement. There's a lot of logistical issues of being on the run. Just see how this all pans out. So you might be wondering who all is assembled here and how the U.S. Marshals operate. Here's how it works. In each task force, there are only a small handful of actual U.S. Marshals. The rest of the team are regional police that have been deputized by the Marshal Service and therefore given the authority of a U.S. Marshal while on duty for these raids. Within this group are Cleveland and Akron officers that are familiar with these neighborhoods and backed by informant networks that help provide the latest intelligence on these fugitives. They're also joined here by suburban and rural officers who bring additional muscle to the operation.
For this case that we're going to deal with, we got information to believe that this guy's at a place in Akron. So what we're going to do now is we got a meeting location that we're all going to go there. We're going to get out. We're going to brief up the fugitive, the house we're going to be dealing with, come up with a tactical plan to do that, and then we're going to go knock it out. My name is Josh Lau. I'm a Deputy U.S. Marshal in the Northern District of Ohio. I've been doing this since 2010, so going on 15 years. We hunt down and arrest violent fugitives.
Daniel Brown, I'm a Deputy United States Marshal.
And how long have you been doing this?
A little over 5 years.
And how would you describe your job?
Unique. It's something new every day. You go anywhere from a lot of surveillance, a lot of intel, a lot of working sources. People get violent, people start running from us, so it changes all day.
Folks, the United States Marshal Service is the oldest federal law enforcement agency in the United States. It was founded in 1789 under President
Did
George
you dash
Washington.
through my
And from the
fucking
Wild West
box?
days tracking fugitives and guarding judges to
That's
enforcing
wild.
desegregation in the Civil Rights era, the Marshals have kept themselves busy making American history. Today, their primary missions are as follows: apprehending dangerous fugitives, protecting judges, witnesses in courtrooms, transporting prisoners, and ensuring justice across all 94 federal districts. The Marshals we are with today, their bread and butter is capturing violent outlaws, and that's what we go out today to do.
So what's an example of how savvy some of these guys are?
It can go anywhere from like staying at a different location than they normally would to completely changing their identity, their look. Like we've had guys that have had like long dreads, they go bald. We have guys that we've had people that dress up as the other sex, like as girls, you know, all the way to that extreme.
We're assembling in a parking lot so that we can go converge on the location, see who has the intel, see who has the contacts, and see if these guys can make a capture of a fugitive. The big thing to know about a job like this is you might see in the movies it's constant action, kicking indoors.
That hit
There's a lot of waiting around, letting the information come in, working the contacts, and then just scoping a place out. It might take hours before you actually take the shot and move in on somebody. So this is kind of a hurry up and wait situation.
I'm a chef.
Oh.
You gonna making a sandwich? He had his back to the camera for a reason. What the hell kind of, is that jelly or chocolate? Jelly. Anybody want a peanut butter jelly sandwich? I will take it. You gotta make it. I'm not gonna make it for you.
Alright guys, we're going for Mr. Terrell Sparks for dangerous drugs. He also has a county case up here for weapons offense. 3 addresses in play, just from what we looked at from his past history here. The address on the collateral that they gave us is the one that Ryan's looking at right now, he likes the most. I got Hutch out there right now, he's saying no cars are there, nothing at all. He got pulled over in the past with this chick's car, got a ticket. 9 yards. The chick lives on Medina. There's a rental car right out front of Medina. That's his dude's MOs. You know, moving drugs in rental cars, going up and down the highway here. I'll send out those couple of addresses.
The 3 addresses kind of break up just in case we see him.
That's fine. I think cars here should blend. So.
Yeah, we should be all right.
If I got any questions, we'll be taking them down to the Fed courthouse. It's clear cut. Cool.
So what's the intel you guys got about this hit?
Basically that he could be at one of these 2 houses. So as of right now, we have multiple people sitting on the residence. And we're gonna wait until we hear otherwise.
A huge part of our success is the public. We blast out a fugitive of the week every week. What that does is that generates tips, you know, and we have the ability to pay tipsters for information that they provide. And the other part of that too is it's not always a money thing for people. There's a lot of good people out there just trying to do the right thing.
What's he driving? Was that it?
Is the car gonna be the
here it
gray
is.
Jeep? Got your seatbelt on, Dre?
Yep.
Anybody still on him?
So we think we might have target in this gray Jeep up here that we're following, potentially.
All right, indicating to go 90 west.
All right, guys, he got off.
Totally not busted.
Fulton Road, West 20, Fulton, West 25th Pearl.
I'm gonna go look in here.
Suspect confirmed.
Just east on Clark from Fulton. He's pulling into a lot over here by Cravings, Food for the Soul. He's parking.
it's go time, when we're at the point where we think we know where fugitives at, there's a lot of things going through my head. I'm trying to evaluate, like, first and foremost, the safety of, like, my guys and girls that are out there, and then making sure we're paying attention to the safety of the people. There's that element of, man, I hope this person just complies. And I hope that, you know, this goes smooth and safe so that we don't have to do anything, you know, extreme to put them into custody or they don't make bad decisions.
I wouldn't be surprised if he ditched the car.
Why do you leave it running?
Think he cares?
That's true.
All right, so to recap, we still have eyes on the Jeep. We think it might be running still, but target exited the vehicle and walked towards that 7th, whatever.
Call it when you guys are ready to lock it down.
Can you see anything?
No. I'm trying to stay back.
Yeah. No, I got you.
He got in the car, he got in the car, he got in the car.
They're doing it already. Too late.
Nope.
Watch crossfire, watch crossfire. He's making his way back to the highway. He's probably gonna get back to the highway from Valentine. Yep.
These are some real good ones.
All right. Yeah, let's just kill lights and sirens for now. Let's let it settle down. We got
that dude fled from us. Not sure if he's going back to 71 or where he's gonna be going, but he fled from us. I'll send you a picture of him, of his vehicle. I don't know if you guys got anybody in the area. If anything, he's gonna go back 71 to 90 to go back to his spot. So he stays on the east side. All right, thank you. Appreciate it, man. We don't know, guys. We don't know where he's at.
It had looked like the marshals had Mr. Sparks good and cornered at the restaurant, but at the last moment, Mr. Sparks was able to get to his car and do the dash and get away, as the local lingo goes. However, what Mr. Sparks may have not been aware of was that the marshals were still pursuing him and had a plan to hit a house he was at the very next day.
Well, shoot, dang it. That is what we like to call a cluster. We didn't know that he was. I didn't know he was in the vehicle.
Nobody called out that he got in the vehicle. We were told that he was walking towards the car, and when we looked over, we saw.
Did you see the guy walking down the street?
So I seen him, and I was like, "That's not our target. That's not him. He's like 50 years old." And then I look over, and dude's putting the car in drive.
How do you know when to call it and move on to the next person?
First and foremost, like, safety is like, that usually dictates for us, like, when we're gonna leave something until the next day. Sometimes putting a little patience in, waiting, sitting there for another day, or coming up with other ways to know for sure that he's there. You know, I mentioned like a chess game, there's a lot of patience involved.
These are both super good.
It's morning number 2 of our hunt with the U.S. Marshals. And what I love about this channel is we get to do both sides of the coin. We just hit a piece with the Atlanta wanted fugitives, guys wanted for murder, robberies. And now we're on the other side of the coin with the U.S. Marshals. And it looks like we have a lot of busts lined up this morning. I'm excited to see some action, see these guys make a capture. So we'll see what they have cooking and what they're off in just a couple minutes here. So what do we have on the docket for this guy?
Next target is going to be
that sun-drenched breeze, that mid-afternoon champagne glow. You'd think our old stories wouldn't still make us laugh this hard, but they only get better. Now we're all making new ones together. And I truly can't remember the last time I danced as hard as I did last night. Virgin Voyages really knows how to throw.
Reginald Henderson. He's wanted for having weapons under disability, legally concealing, carrying concealed weapon, receiving stolen property, drug trafficking, drug possession, and possession of criminal tools. We got solid information that Target works at one of the restaurants here on the street. We've already confirmed with the staff that he shows up here daily, and he's scheduled to come to work today. He's got a routine. He normally takes the bus here, shows up early for work, typically around 10:30, 10:40. Goal here is we're hopefully going to spot him soon enough, and then we're going to conduct an open air takedown here on the street, hopefully away from pedestrians. We do have information, credible information, that Target is known to carry a gun. I believe staff and or friends of his have confirmed that with investigators.
There's another one of our guys, that white Ford down the way.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, dude doesn't show up. He has a place for him.
I don't know. I think if he doesn't show up by 11, I'm going to have Stevens see if they'll call him and check in on him, see what the deal is. Alright, you think we got him coming down the street right now? Alright, south side of the street, so he's going to be on that side. He might be. Gray pants, black and gray hooded sweatshirt. Should be coming up like on your guys' left.
Oh, yeah, I see him.
He's on our right. He's on our right. Alright, we're gonna let him pass. He'll let us pass us. I'll tell you when to start moving. He's like 2 buildings away from map room. Alright, let's dismount. Let's do this. Police, keep your hands where we can see them. Let's go. Stop digging. You got headphones in? Take them out. Set the backpack down. Set the backpack down now, slowly. You got a warrant for your arrest. Set the backpack down.
Put it down or you will be tased.
Put it down, let's go.
Put it down.
Set the backpack down now or you're gonna get tased.
Keep your hands where we can see. Walk. Let me see your hands.
Turn around, face the building. Face the building and walk backwards towards us. They can either surrender peacefully or sometimes they barricade and hide themselves in whatever structure that we're dealing with, whether it's a house or apartment. Sometimes guys run. Hey, look, I'm gonna tase you in 2 seconds. Stop going towards the book bag. Put your hands on top of your head. Put them on top of your head. I'm giving you an order. Put them on top of your head. Put your hands on top of your head or you're gonna get tased. Get in the book bag, get the...
You will get it again.
You're gonna get tased again if you don't comply. Stop moving your hand. Let's go.
I'm crawling.
All right, let's go. Go ahead, guys. Man, he was making me nervous.
That's crazy. 150
Man,
free
we gave
armor.
you plenty of opportunities. You're messing around playing
Magic
games.
resist.
You don't know what you're talking about? Okay. Gave you simple instructions. Put your hands on your head, walk towards us, and you kept walking back towards your book bag. We don't know what you got in the bag. You look like you were trying to run away.
Oh, and his earbud.
As you guys saw there, he had a decision to make, comply with us. We could tell he was looking for an avenue to either escape. He had the book bag in his hand. He kept giving me looks like he was going to go reach into there. Information we had is that he had a gun potentially, so I didn't know if he was going for a gun. At that time, we got to make a decision. You know, it's either going to be us or him, and I was worried that he was going to be reaching for a gun in his book bag. So we decided to deploy taser, and that was effective, and we were able to put him under arrest.
Suspect that we've been looking for a little bit here. It looks like he's wanted for engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity and he has a significant criminal history, it looks like, too. Like multiple arrests from multiple